Hello, she's back. Paulina Pinsky came back. And this time I wanted to talk about dating because she said something when she was here with her dad, talking about their book, It Doesn't Have to Be Awkward, about how kids these days date. And then I had the same information come from Tatum when Tatum and Georgia did a podcast with me. So I was curious to have a deeper conversation with her about dating in today's world in your 20s. I think it was a pretty good conversation. Of course, we talked about more than that. Of course. She's 90 days sober today, which is amazing. And we just kind of talked about her healing process and what's going on for her, dating, and writing this book again. It was a really good conversation. I love talking to Paulina. I feel like she's an old soul, and that I've known her for a long time. So I'm so grateful to Drew for introducing me to her. It was a really fun day. So I was glad to see her and glad to have her on again. And we had a good conversation, and I hope you enjoy it too. Thank you for coming back every week. Thank you for sharing my podcast. Thank you for all your positive comments. I read all the comments, positive or negative. I can't respond to everything, but I do read them. And I appreciate any input you have about episode ideas. I love that. So keep those coming too. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this conversation about dating with Paulina Pinsky. We could just keep talking.
Okay, great.
Hi, Paulina.
Hi, Leanne.
I'm so glad you're back.
I love being here. I love you, obviously.
Same. I love you too. It's nice to have you here.
It's interesting. I woke up today. Well, I tried to wake up today, and eventually my mom came in, and I sleep with an eye mask. She was like, "You can't do that. You're not going to wake up." I was like,
that's the point.
I guess you're right.
Right.
So I was like, "Oh, I better get up." And really slow starting day. But then I went to a recovery meeting, and it was really just like, virtually, it's kind of hard to have a good meeting, I find, like, because I can check out, I can online shop, I can check my Instagram, whatever.
Yeah.
But today is day 90.
But congrats.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
3 months.
Yeah, 3 whole months. It's so crazy. 3 months.
It's amazing. You should be very proud of yourself.
I do feel proud of myself.
You
like
should.
Today, it was just kind of like, they tell you 90 meetings in 90 days. I for sure have done more than 90 meetings. I don't know how many because I can't keep count.
Right.
But I feel great. And I just feel like I was just so excited to come here and see you and talk to you. And
Awesome. You look really grounded.
I feel grounded.
Yeah.
I started with a new therapist yesterday.
Yeah?
A few weeks ago, my therapist dumped me over text.
Dumped you over text?
Yeah.
Wait. Did they give you a reason?
So she was a New York-based therapist, and for the end of through this month,
over text?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, not good.
Not good at all. Then I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good riddance.
Yeah, right. Like
Yes.
she did me a gift.
She did.
But basically, we were trying to figure out if she could continue being my therapist, but I guess telehealth rules have changed or whatever. And so I got up. Last I heard from her, we were going to meet at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday. I think 2 weeks ago. And I get up at 9. I'm like, Zoom info. And she sends me a text full of misspellings being like, I can't see you anymore because you're in California. And I said like, oh no, I don't know. Like, I didn't react yet. I was like, oh, can we not continue to see each other until my insurance runs out? All she said was, no, sorry, next text, talk later. And I was like, why is my therapist being a fuckboy right now?
Completely.
Yeah.
That's way too casual.
Right. And, she's not the best therapist I've ever had, but I've been seeing her since October. I got her through insurance. And obviously I went through a huge life change with her.
Of course. Yeah.
And so I felt completely abandoned.
Yeah. This happened yesterday?
This happened 2 weeks ago, thankfully.
2 weeks ago. Okay.
So I've been 2 weeks sans therapist. But I was able to talk to I don't remember who I definitely talked to my dad about it, and he called me. He was like, "That's so unprofessional."
It's completely unprofessional.
Yeah, he was like, "You could file a complaint," and I was like,
Right.
"I'm gonna file a complaint." He's like, "Well, maybe talk to your sponsor first. Like, maybe it's not worth it." And so I sent a text back being like, "Last time I heard, we were meeting at 9 a.m. and I would have appreciated canceling before that, so I hadn't gotten ready for you." And I said something like, this does a disservice to the work that we've done and my respect for you.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what the fuck? Like,
what the actual fuck?
yeah.
Yeah, that's really bad.
Yeah. So that kind of like sent me akimbo a little bit.
It did.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah.
But that's not about you.
Yeah, true. It's about the law. And her.
Might be about her.
Well,
anybody who says talk later, it might be about her. That might be about her.
Yeah.
Not everybody, not every podiatrist is good at their job. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
There's Looney Tunes in every single practice of every single profession.
Yeah.
And I think psychology, psychiatry might have one or two extra.
Yeah. It's just hard though, because it was like during COVID, could not find a therapist through my insurance, was put on a wait list, finally got this therapist through insurance, and she was a wackadoo, and like it's so frustrating to experience the mental health system with every privilege imaginable and still be totally fucked over by it.
It's unacceptable.
It's
to be honest with you, with all the shit they talk about in Washington, the two things they don't talk about and should is mental health and education.
Yeah.
Those two things are the cornerstone of health, in my opinion, for every human being that lives.
Yeah.
Every human being needs to be educated in a way that empowers them.
Yes.
And takes care of their mental health in a way that empowers them. Because if you empower people, then they're happy, they're productive.
Yep.
They'll, listen, my family's really blue collar, and I am very proud of that. And someone said to me just today, you should work at a job you don't want to retire from. And my dad is a mechanic, auto mechanic, super blue collar. He took him forever to retire, and he's still not really retired. He just closed his shop that he owned and now is working for our cousin doing the same basic skill.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself that sees no income level. That statement, you should do something from which you don't want to retire, unfortunately is not taught in school.
Yeah.
Because they don't say, hey, you want to be a nail tech? Freaking go for it.
Yeah.
They don't say that. They go, you want to be a nail tech? Well, why don't you go ahead and apply for college? Not everybody's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people are bucking the traditional route right now. Like I have a cousin who is, I think she's 19. She's an artist. And we reconnected on Instagram. I love the 21st century.
I know, right?
And she was talking about, like maybe college isn't for her. And it's interesting because college was so instrumental in my self-development and like my self-concept, and like it's hard for me to wrap my head around someone not wanting that, but I also understand like it's not accessible to everybody, right? And also it's like education is becoming a luxury good, and
it is.
It should be a human right.
It should be, absolutely. It should be a right. It should be a right in elementary school to be able to learn and flourish if you're not a typical learner.
Yeah.
It should. And what's missing, I believe completely missing, is art, music, and physical education.
Oh, man.
There's no physical education in high school. In my kids' high school, if you play a sport, that counts. So there's no hour in the day where you get to burn off steam, where the jock who can't do algebra goes on the basketball court and dominates.
Yeah.
So some people need those three particular areas every single day. And I don't understand why that has left, especially PE.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I always hated PE.
But you were academic.
I was academic and I was also an ice skater. So I was already doing sports. But it's interesting because I think because I did dance and skating and stuff, I have a very strong foundation in terms of my physical education. Like I know how to lift. I know how to do all these different things because of the training that I got for figure skating. And I've dated people who like just don't know how to move their body.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it feels debilitating to watch sometimes. And that's like a fucked up thing to say, but it's just like, how do you not know how to like hold yourself? And it's just like, oh, you weren't taught
Exactly.
how to.
Yeah, I have a friend like that too, where I go, wow, you don't understand that you can move 2 limbs at the same time together. You don't get that concept at all.
Yeah.
So how hard it is to do just a jumping jack. When my thing about physical education is, I think it's a good, in some instances, obviously not in all, but in some instances, it's a good leveler, you know, for kids who aren't great academically and are good athletically.
Right.
Same with art. If you're not good academically, but you have art class every day or 2 days a week, then your peer group can go, wow, she's really good at that.
Right.
Instead of just being
Monolithic
academia.
intelligence.
So then a kid like Isla has no place to excel because academia is so difficult for her because she has learning disability.
Yeah.
But you give her a pencil and a piece of paper and you're like, oh, I see where your intelligence lies.
I loved her wheel costume.
Oh, is she not the funniest thing ever?
Oh my God. She's
funny.
my hero. That's incredible.
She's so creative and brave and herself.
That's gorgeous. It's so hard to be yourself as a teenager.
It is. And, you know, it is a little debilitating, too, because sometimes she's unwilling to not be herself to fit in. So then sometimes she doesn't fit in. And that's super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But, you know, Georgia is much more of a chameleon. And sometimes I think that's harder.
Yeah.
Because then you lose your compass, you lose your barometer where you go, all of a sudden now you're trying on someone else's behavior. And that doesn't line up with any of your value systems.
Yes.
Nothing that you've been taught. Who is this person that showed up at my dinner table? Whereas Isla is the same person every day, but has a harder time socially. It's so fascinating. I was very much like Isla. I was like, nope, this is, you tell me that one time, that's you show me who you are.
Yeah.
I'm good.
That's so, I mean, just from what you tell me and what I've witnessed virtually, it seems like Georgia and Bert and you and Isla. Like, it's so interesting how genetics just manifest.
It is true. People always think Isla is Bert because she is an outside the box thinker.
Yeah.
But I am also an outside the box thinker.
Yeah.
It's not as loud.
Yeah.
You know, his is at the top of his lungs. You know, I always say he casts a wide wake.
Yeah.
You got to hold on that rope and ski it out, buddy. But, you know, I'm a pretty dynamic water skier. So I ride the wake just fine. But Isla is very similar to me. Obviously, she's her own person.
Of course.
But we definitely assess, evaluate, and decide very quickly.
That's a skill. I'm learning that right now because I'm a Georgia. I have contorted myself around people my entire life. Part of that is boundary issues. Part of that is codependency. Part of that was like how I survived, right?
Totally.
Like people pleasing, I need to fit in, right? And so I would become my friend. I would buy what they told me to buy. I would eat what they told me to eat. I would say what they told me to say, you know? And it's hard and it feels dangerous to be myself sometimes.
It's a vulnerability thing. For Georgia, at least, I can say for sure, it is a survival mechanism to be a chameleon. And it does keep you very safe sometimes because then you don't have to really be accountable for your feelings in a certain way that's scary.
Yeah.
And that's no judgment on Georgia.
No.
Every time I try to parent and not saying this is where you're bad or this is where you're wrong, but to say this is how you function. And if you know this is how you function, then you can allow that knowledge to shift yourself in whatever way makes you more happy or productive or successful as a human. So if you know, like we talked about last time, the anticipation is worse than the actual thing.
Yeah.
Then you can go, oh, okay, I am anticipating something now and it's getting me all worked up. So I know this about myself, so I can maybe let some of that go and also appreciate some of it because it helps me feel safe. It helps me feel in control or whatever that question is answered for the person that feels that way. So even when they do someone Georgia came to me not long ago and she was like, I really screwed up as a friend.
Mm.
And this is what I did. And this is why I did it. And I'm not very happy with myself. And now I don't know what to do.
Mm.
And I was like, well, honesty is always the best policy. Just be honest, be open, and take responsibility. And, you know, it's just a vulnerable thing to do that. It's a lot easier sometimes to just continue morphing.
Yeah.
And so I said to her in that moment, you've been doing things like this since preschool, and you kind of go off your path too far, make a mistake that you feel really bad about, and then you get back on the path. So this is something that's been happening since preschool.
That's so, I mean, what a beautiful gift you are giving her by witnessing her and reflecting her back to herself, right? Like saying, this is who you are. There's nothing wrong with it.
Nothing at all.
And I think part of the challenge of living is learning more and more about ourselves and accepting that about ourselves. And like, ultimately, it's interesting because she could continue to chameleon forever. But if she decides that she's done, she could decide to be done.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing wrong with being a chameleon.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. And one might say you get to experience a whole different set of emotions that someone who, like me, is never a chameleon doesn't get to experience. So why is mine better than hers, or vice versa? You know, there's no judgment on her. What I said to her when I was parenting is, no judgment, just know this about yourself.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you're getting off your barometer, you may want to go, hold on one second. Let me make sure I'm making the right choices for me. And then continue on.
Yeah.
And maybe the right choice is to continue on that path that's not your normal path. And maybe the right choice is to go back on your own path. And either one works as long as you're successful and you're happy and you're progressing as a human.
I think this could be a nice segue because I tend to chameleon when I'm in a relationship.
I know, right? We're supposed to talk about dating and we got totally off track, but that's okay. That's what podcasts are. It's the beauty of a podcast is it kind of
go where we go.
Whatever it is. So dating.
Yeah. So I have a tendency to lose myself in relationships. I'm the girl who, when I get a boyfriend, I disappear and I become them, essentially.
You become the guy?
Their interests are my interests. Personal trainer I dated in my early 20s was obsessed with cats, so I got a cat.
Okay.
You know, my fiance was super into psychedelics and bright colors, so I was super into psychedelics and bright colors, right?
Yeah.
My high school boyfriend, we were just straight up codependent. And that's the seed of it, is codependency for me. But it's interesting what you're saying because I started with this therapist yesterday, and we did EMDR.
I don't know what that is.
It's eye movement directed. I fucked it up already.
Oh, something. You know what? My therapist friend told me about this.
There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah, no,
by
I haven't
Basil
read
Van
it.
Kolk, I think. And EMDR is sort of the foundation of his practice. And traditional EMDR is like sort of like you move your finger and like the foundation of it. Let's see if I can regurgitate what my therapist said to me yesterday. My new therapist, who's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm like so glad
it's meant
Staten
to be.
Island lady dumped me because
meant to be.
It needed to happen.
Yeah.
But essentially what happens when you're traumatized is that your limbic system, so like the base structure of your brain, it stores the memory and it refrains from letting blood go to sort of the frontal lobe. So you stop processing what's happening, right? And so it's just like a memory stored in there. And it's sort of like a trapped, a little trapped squirrel or whatever.
Okay.
And so basically EMDR, what it does is that it activates both sides of the brain. It's not as simple as like left brain, right brain, but it's more of just like activating the spheres. And so you can do it through like, they have these like hand buzzing things. So it like buzzes, like buzz, 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 buzz.
Oh,
buzz,
I see. You
buzz.
kind of stimulate left and then right and then
And
left.
So it can be activated that way. It can be activated through sound where it's like one sound, you know, kind of pitter pattering. I couldn't do that. I was like, I need the hands. And she also said that you can sort of reactivate the same thing through walking. So essentially it's just activating both sides of the body so that you can activate those regions of the brain while sort of experiencing the memory. And what's interesting about EMDR is that you don't necessarily have to like talk about it. You just I'll have the buzzers in my hand and then she'll talk to me and I'll think about it. And so it's more about sort of relearning how to process those memories so that when it's sort of like refiling them. And so yesterday we did purely just like mantras, like calming mantras. I am calming my mind. I am calming my body. I am okay right here and now. And then a loving one that I haven't practiced clearly, so I can't remember it. But she was saying that you can also do it by like tapping your knees and being like, I'm calming my mind. I'm calming my body. I am safe right here, right now. And then also, I'm just going into it. EMDR, you don't have to pay for it. I will. And then you do like tapping. I guess primates in the wild also do this to calm themselves, where it's just like, saying a loving mantra or whatever, or just like trying to calm yourself and you can rock. So
very cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that's a whole new venture for me. Totally wiped me out. Like I was exhausted afterwards.
Were you really?
Yeah. And I think it's because it sort of catapulted my body into a sense of presence that I don't normally feel. And I kind of felt like my esophagus was flared up. And I got home and I was telling my dad that, and he was like, well, maybe your esophagus is always that flared up. You just don't notice. So that's EMDR for free. So yeah, I'm not dating right now, but I've done a lot of dating in my day.
You have?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I've only heard about the high school, the personal trainer, the fiance.
Yeah. So those are sort of like the big three primary like long-term relationships I've had. I guess I'll start from the beginning. Woo! Kicking my shoes off.
Take them shoes off, girl. Let's go.
All right. So the year is 1996.
Yeah.
I'm in preschool. I have a boyfriend.
In preschool?
We kiss under this like tire that's like dug into the ground. And that was the first of like many boyfriends I had during elementary school. I like to say I was the elementary school's town bicycle. I always had a boyfriend. There was always someone that I was just like hyper fixated on.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could list all their names. I'm like, I don't think I can list their names here.
That's up to you. I don't know. There were many. Every year there was a new crush, right? Yeah. And so I was always very flirtatious and like bubbly, and I was told I was pretty as a small girl, so I understood that like my value was that I was pretty, and so I didn't feel smart academically. I think socially I was sort of like, for lack of a better phrase, like queen bee a little bit. In that I had friends and I was the hoarder of secrets and I just knew everything and I was sort of in the mix of everything. Yeah.
But it's ironic because I feel like friendship wise, I was ice skating all the time, so I couldn't go to birthday parties and I couldn't do normal sleepovers and all this stuff. So I think having these boyfriends and sort of like I would go home and journal like my list of who I had a crush on, and every day it would be different. Like it was like a rotating list.
What do you think that was about?
Part of me is like my dad wasn't home a lot, and so I think sort of like hyper fixating on a male,
like searching.
I think.
Sort of. Interesting.
Yeah. So I was always just like, I always had a crush on somebody, even when I was very, very little. And so yeah, all the way through middle school, it was like one kid named Jack for a really long time. People were like, "You named your cat Jack, really?" And I'm like, "It's a good name."
It's a very basic name. Everyone is. How many Jacks do you know? Oh, well, maybe no.
All my childhood friends are like, "We see through you," and it's weird.
That's so funny.
And so yeah, my first like real boyfriend. I had a boyfriend who went to a different school in the 8th grade. He was a year older than me. And like I was always kissing people, but I was not like sexual.
Yeah.
Mostly because I was terrified of it for the reason of like my dad's gonna broadcast it on the radio if I do anything.
Yeah.
But also I just like wasn't ready.
Yeah.
It was like very like that bubbly feeling in your stomach. Like just like a reason to want to go to school.
Mhm.
Like, I think that's the bottom line is like, I didn't feel like I was excelling academically. I didn't really feel like I fit in socially.
Mhm.
But I dominated in the crush realm.
Right.
And so in high school, I dated my high school sweetheart. And that was a very, very codependent relationship.
What? How? What do you mean?
So it's interesting. I haven't like thought about how to tell this, but I guess here we go. So he was Muslim.
Okay.
And he told me that we had to date in secret because his parents couldn't know. And I was like, we can't date in secret. Like, I can't do that. And so I made him tell his parents about us, and they were not happy. But we dated for like 2.5 years. And over the course of that time, I slowly sort of rescinded from my friendships and sort of was just like entirely invested in this relationship.
Oh, okay.
And part of that was like, I never actually really felt like I fit in with my friends, and that like sometimes they'd forget to invite me and I was sort of the butt of the joke all the time. And like, also I think that I just didn't accept myself. So how could I accept the love from others?
Mm-hmm.
And so over the course of 2.5 years, you know, he would walk me to and from my classes, and we'd eat lunch together. And, you know, it got to the point where like he would tuck me in at bed at night, brush my retainer, brush my hair, and then like literally tuck me into bed. And then the next day, like wake me up and take me to school. So it was like he became sort of like my proxy father.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Because dad was doing a lot of celebrity rehab.
Right.
And the other thing is like he was the first person. Oh, here we go. There's something in my eye.
Uh-oh.
He was the first person who knew about my bulimia. And so we admitted self-harming tendencies. And so that like trauma bonded us. And so it was like, if you don't harm yourself, I won't harm myself.
Right.
And so we did sort of that like, we were very much in love in that way that like a first love is.
Sure.
But also like there was so much intensity that it was a sign of mental illness. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's what it was. But also I think as a culture, we prioritize intensity from all the way from like Romeo and Juliet. It's like you're supposed to want to die if your fucking boyfriend dies. You know?
Isn't that the truth? That it is very romanticized, that intensity.
Yeah.
And it's not very healthy.
Not at all.
It's not healthy. I was just talking to Bert about this yesterday. Because I was like, I think you need to start working like 2 weeks a month and then be 2 weeks a month at home, either podcasting or, you know, going to Two Bears in Austin and like not have so much intensity. We're 50 now. Let's like just lower the intensity. And he started literally coming unraveled.
Oh, yeah.
In front of me. And I was like, last I checked, that might be a healthy choice to just kind of like calm it down a little bit, because he works so hard and so intensely, eats intensely, drinks intensely, loves intensely, so much that you go, anything that intense has got to burn out. It has to. Something's going to start breaking down.
That's so fascinating that you said that, because talk about work intensity. My dad is the most intense worker.
Probably more than Bert.
Yeah. And it's toned down a lot. I would say it's manageable now, but like I'm imagining my mom saying that to my dad and him freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
Because I think intensity begets intensity.
It does. It's adrenaline. You know, when you were telling me, it's so funny when you were telling me about your list of boyfriends and a different list every day or every week, I thought to myself, that's adrenaline. That new love, new
relationship energy, right?
Is adrenaline. You know, that is addictive.
Oh, yeah.
That adrenaline.
That's so interesting. Because I mean, I guess, you know, I am an addict, so I guess I've always been an addict. And I think I'm sort of thinking of writing a one-woman show, and the opening line being, my name is Paulina and I'm addicted to boyfriends. And it's sort of just like being sort of like a survey of like that entire experience. Because like from the get-go, I was addicted to that feeling.
To love, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I for sure qualify as a love addict, but I'm just like, I'm sticking with just the, let's work on substance abuse first. You know,
right. No.
Yeah.
No, I think, so when I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but we went to this thing we called brain camp when she had sensory processing problems.
Okay.
So her sensory processing disorder was so bad, it would take her like 45 minutes to get shoes on.
Wow.
To be able to tolerate a shoe to walk out the door. So I found this place when she was in first grade that would put, like, you know, those TENS machines that make you kind of make your muscles spasm.
Yeah.
They put those on her head and would stimulate her brain, which is a muscle, to grow a little differently. You had to do this before she was 8. And if you could get a kid that had some processing issues before they were 8, you could actually affect change in like rerouting some neuro pathways so that they could get relief from some of these symptoms from this disorder. Within 2 weeks of starting this program, she was like 80% better. It was shocking. Like, to the point where Bert and I were like, what's happening? Like, did we imagine how bad it was and like make it up? It's so much different.
Wow.
And it changed so quickly. But when we went to start this program, they did probably the wrong term, a CAT scan or whatever on her brain. They sat us down and were explaining to us her brain structure. And they were like, something you should know. She has what we call a hot singlet. And we were like, what is a hot singlet? And they were like, a singlet is, I guess, a part of your brain. And when it's considered hot, it fires a lot. And I was like, well, what does that mean for her? Like, what does that mean? He said, that means could be quite impulsive. And I went, does that mean she could be an addict? And he goes, doesn't necessarily mean she can be an addict, but I can tell you this, every addict has a hot singlet. And I went, I don't know if I want this information, but I definitely need this information.
Yeah.
So I was like, Bert definitely has a hot singlet. They need that kind of intensity input because it kind of feeds that hot singlet part of their brain.
Interesting.
That needs that stimulation. So you have to figure out, what he said to us in that meeting was, you have to figure out healthy ways to stimulate, so that hot singlet gets satisfied. So a lot of people don't have the resources or the knowledge or the drive to rock climb instead of, smoke meth. Or, run a marathon instead of, it's that kind of intensity where you need this like release of intensity in your body so that your hot singlet can like calm down.
I wonder if I have a hot singlet.
I wonder if you have a hot singlet.
I probably do.
It sounds like you might.
I'm very impulsive.
It sounds
in
like
sobriety,
you
I
might.
haven't been so much, but
interesting, isn't it?
Things I could tell you. That's so fascinating. I mean, the brain is such an interesting thing. I mean, it's literally like the primary instrument. It's so delicate and intricate, and
and mysterious.
It's just like a hunk of gunk, and it's just like my memories are stored in there. My word processing is in there. My balance is in there.
Your autonomic system
is
in there.
Insane. It's insane.
Wife of the Party is brought to you by HelloFresh. I know. I say it every time. I love HelloFresh. It is America's #1 meal kit. Tonight, I'm making a chicken stir fry with rice. My kids are so excited. I can hardly get Georgia to come home from lacrosse practice to eat dinner unless I'm cooking HelloFresh. That's the only time I can get her to come home. I love this meal kit program. I love it because everything is pre-portioned. You don't have to measure anything. All you got to do is open it up, chop it up, cook it up, serve it up. It's the best. I love it because you have options. If you want to go vegetarian for a week, then you go online to your HelloFresh portal and you're vegetarian that week. If you want to try something you'd never tried before, then you can try that with HelloFresh. I absolutely love this meal kit program. Everything is fresh. It sounds pretty stupid, but everything is fresh. And I grew up maybe not eating everything fresh. And it's amazing when you have fresh produce and fresh meats, what a difference it makes in how things taste. HelloFresh cuts back on time spent in the kitchen with meals ready in around 30 minutes or less. Plus, quick and easy meals, including 20-minute recipes and low prep and easy cleanup options, provide an even faster route to putting food on the table. HelloFresh is 72% cheaper than a restaurant meal of the same quality, and you can save, on average, over $65 per month when you order HelloFresh instead of grocery shopping. That's money back in your pocket. HelloFresh offers 50 menu and market items to choose from every week, including veggie, fit and wholesome, family-friendly, and gourmet options, providing plenty of variety. Go to HelloFresh.com/wife16 and use code WIFE16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's right. Just go to HelloFresh.com/wife16 and use code WIFE16 for up to 16 meals free and 3 free gifts. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. This episode is also brought to you by Solo Stove. Okay. A Solo Stove showed up on my porch. I did not know they were sponsoring my podcast. I got so excited about the stove. I started calling people and saying, who sent me this stove? Who sent me this stove? I'm so new to having a podcast sponsor. It didn't occur to me that they might be a sponsor. So I've had this stove forever going, this is such a mystery. Well, I guess I'm just going to open it and use it because clearly it was a gift and it was addressed to me. So I was like super excited to get this Solo Stove because, as most of you know, we remodeled a house and we put in a fire pit. Well, my husband doesn't like smoke, so we put in a gas fire pit, which made me really sad because I like to burn wood. And of course, I don't like the smoke. That's why he wanted a gas fire pit, because he didn't want any smoke. Well, I had never heard of a Solo Stove. So I was so excited to get this product for which you can build a wood-burning fire, and it's pretty much smoke-free. I don't know how they've designed this thing, but it's easy to start a fire. I mean, it's the hardest thing ever is starting a fire like in the open outdoors because you can never get the airflow just right. And I mean, every Girl Scout camping trip is my #1 complaint is this stupid fire pits have no airflow and I can't get the fire started. You don't have to deal with that with a Solo Stove. They have engineered this thing so that the airflow is such that it burns clean and it's really easy to light. And when you're done, you're not left with like big chunks of charred wood. It's just white ash. It just burns completely. I think this is maybe my favorite thing that I've gotten maybe as an adult. I love it so much, no joke. I think this thing is awesome. Not to mention, it's portable. You can put it in the back of your car and take it to the beach. You could take it camping. You can move it from the front yard to the backyard. It's awesome. I am so excited when I figured out they were my sponsor because I don't really have sponsors that I don't use or I'm not excited about. I'm so excited about this product, Solo Stove. It's made with premium grade 304 stainless steel and has a 360-degree airflow system that maximizes efficiency while minimizing smoke. It's easy to light with a few bits of starter. It's portable, like I said. And you can shop now and get up to 30% off fire pits all month long and use promo code WIFE at checkout to get an extra $20 off. Plus, it has a lifetime warranty and free 30-day return. Just go to solostove.com and remember, you get $20 off when you use the promo code WIFE. And I have to tell you something. If you buy one of these, I want you to email me and tell me how awesome it is because I freaking love mine. I love it so much. Because now I feel like I can have a wood-burning fire pit outside anytime I want, and Bert can have his stinky old gas one all to himself. So thank you, Solo Stove. And please let me know if you like this product because I think it's amazing. So dating.
So
what I wanted to talk to you about.
Modern dating.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's my, my foundation is codependent relationship, hyperfixation on crushes. And so When I went to college, I was like, nobody knows who I am. Started drinking my face off. Was just like so green. Like my best friend from college, we went to high school and middle school together. And I remember when I was a senior, her and her best friend were like, Paulina, we're worried about you because you trust too easily. And I was like, what do you mean? It's fine. Like, I don't, you know.
All right.
And so I did all of the like shitty things you can do in college in terms of just like getting blitzed and like fucking a basketball player in the basement of a frat house and walking home drunk and then calling my ex-boyfriend. You know, it's like, I've done all of that. And so I experienced hookup culture in college.
So explain that hookup culture.
So hookup culture is just basically like, no one is trying to date. Everyone is getting drunk to have sex, and everyone, it's sort of like everyone is dying for connection, like deep connection, but all we're able to do is connect sexually and like just disconnect emotionally. And like I went to Barnard, which is the Women's College of Columbia, and so I was with all these people who were like super high achieving, and I was once told by a guy that like he could never settle because he always wants something better. And you know, the dating, like the gender ratio at Barnard and Columbia was 60-40. So it was 60% women, 40% men. And that made the dating pool very small because of those men, most of them were gay. And then, you know, some of them were taken or whatever it was. And so all these like mediocre ass dudes were the cream of the crop, and they were treating women like shit because they had 3 to every one of them. Right. And so there was sort of this inherent disposability. But also like I described the sex I had in college as like having people trip and fall and land inside of me. Like it wasn't good. It was not good.
Oh my God.
Truly. Like I look back and I recently like tried to list everyone that I've ever had sex with, and like I'm sure there's people I forgot because I was so blottoed, you know, but like I learned how to gain or seek validation through getting someone to have sex with me and then feel robbed of emotional connection when there never was any. And I think that's sort of like the foundation of hookup culture. I when I was writing It Doesn't Have to Be Awkward, I was teaching at LAM College, and one of my students raised her hand and she was like, catch a body, move on. As soon as you've hooked up, it's already over.
Wow. Okay, this is what concerns me about that. Is that this is not a Paulina Pinsky thing. This is I feel like this is your generation and maybe a little younger. Because I was talking to 2 people. One is George's friend in high school who we podcasted. And in the podcast, this conversation came up because I had just talked to you about it when we did It Doesn't Have to Be Awkward. So she said it absolutely happens in college. They just text, they hook up, they have sex, or not her. She didn't do this, but this is the culture of her high school. Yeah. A girl just give a guy a blowjob and it's done. Yeah. And I'm like, I was going like, oh my God. There's so many. It's like you go from not being able to hold your head up as an infant straight to walking. Yeah. Like you don't even know how to sit up. Yeah. You don't know how to balance.
Well, that's the truth of it, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I wrote this and It Doesn't Have to Be Awkward, but I always think of this phrase like people are giving out blowjobs like handshakes. Yeah. And there is this inherent, I feel like when I speak of hookup culture, I tend to speak in very gendered terms, you know, in that like often it's a girl catering to a guy and he decides when it's over or whatever. So like there's sort of this sense of like, always prioritizing the man, prioritizing the person with the penis, and making sure that they feel pleasure. And the idea of you receiving pleasure isn't even on the table. Wow. Like, I don't think that I orgasmed in college. I can maybe one time. At my own hand all the time. Someone else's hand.
No, yeah.
One time.
Yeah, but see that what I don't understand is what happened to make that the culture. Is the third person I talked to is 25, is a male, and is really depressed. And I was like, I was having a very casual, no big deal conversation with him not even someone I know very well.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for Bert in an office, and he was someone who worked in the office and that I've talked to a few times.
Yeah.
But I was telling him about my podcast I just did with my daughter and her friend, and she was like, I'm really, really depressed, and I think it's because of that. He said, I think it's because I don't know how to have this connection. I don't know how to just go to coffee.
Yeah.
And then go, well, I got to wait until we go to coffee again. And then I got to wait until I take her to dinner. Or then I got to wait. That's just like, I mean, what I understood was what's happening in hookup culture is you want to get to the meat of it, so to speak. But it's actually not the meat. You know?
Yeah.
It's like thinking the most important part of a Big Mac is the lettuce. And you're like, wait, no, hold the fuck on. It's the bread, it's the sauce.
It's the entire
it has to go together or you're just eating lettuce.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's a couple things. I think it's the proliferation of porn, in that kids as young as 7 are watching porn.
That is not okay.
And obviously, as a grown adult, you're like, that's a performance. These are hired actors.
Totally.
Most of them are loaded sometimes, deeply traumatized, but they also understand that they're performing, right? They have a sex life completely different from this. And so for a lot of kids, they're getting introduced to porn very early, and that is the main source of sex education that they have.
Terrible.
And so, I came to porn very late, and I can only do it in very small doses, and I go through periods of it, and I mostly watch gay porn because straight porn is just so horrendous. Just like the dialogue of like, I came to fix your toilet, like whatever it is, like these people are not talking to each other.
Yeah.
It's just like, your boobs are big and I want to rub up on them.
Yeah, right.
And she's like, yes, oh my God. And it's hard to watch. But for someone who doesn't know any better, they're like, oh, that's how I talk to women.
That's how it works.
And so that's, I think, one thing. So two, like sort of the lack of mainstream sex education and the fact that like abstinence only is the mode de resistance for a lot of the country. And, kids are getting pregnant because they have bodies and they have feelings and they have urges, and
totally
they're not taught like, oh, use a condom. Yeah. Whatever it is, like something that would prevent you from becoming a parent too soon.
Yeah.
And then I think that generally we have a hard time, and I think maybe this goes back into sort of the gendered concept of hookup culture, but like men are not taught that women are people. And women are taught that men need to be catered to in every facet. And so, and I'm saying this as someone who like very much was a product and sort of worked to sort of undo that training of like, don't laugh at all of his jokes if they're not funny, like, having someone earn your trust. And so that's why, I'm so appreciative of it doesn't have to be awkward, because like there was like an Amazon review that was like, this is a bit antiquated, and it's like,
what?
And it's like, it is viewed as antiquated to
who?
Some random guy. I don't know. Someone in Florida.
That guy, I don't know what he's talking about.
But like, it could be viewed as antiquated to say, hey, go on a date, talk to someone, have them earn your trust, offer them compassion. And if they don't respect your boundaries,
go by.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, I think because of the images that young children are being inundated with early and the lack of sexual education and sort of just like the systemic preference towards men and how like young girls are not taught. And I think it's happening more and more now, but like, I guess I can speak from like my own experience. And that's the other thing is like, I am not monolithic. Right. Like my experience is singular. Yeah, like I'm not speaking for my generation.
Oh, totally. No. No, I don't think you are.
Yeah. But like, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we have a hard time seeing other people as people, and that the connection that we crave is a symptom of something larger, and that ache is also in the person that you're trying to talk to.
Right.
And so I think it's people say like addiction, like addiction exists in isolation. And so like if we're thinking about like addiction is sort of like this impulse that to like use something to sort of quell an ache. Like I think that sort of deep ache, whether you're an addict or not, exists in everybody.
Oh, of course it does. Yes.
And so we are not taught how to connect with other people because we are being proliferated with so many images that are telling us how to be. And it's interesting too, and this is kind of a tangent, but like I obviously think representation matters. We definitely need diverse representation. But I think as a culture, we mistake the screen as our mirror. So it's like, I can't feel valid until I see it on the screen.
Interesting.
And that I think is a mistake, right?
It's a huge mistake. It's completely inaccurate.
And it's how a lot of people feel, where it's like, well, this isn't for me because it's not my experience.
Right.
And it's like, no one said it had to be your experience for you to be a compassionate listener.
Right.
And just because you're not seeing your experience reflected on the screen doesn't mean your experience is invalid.
Right.
And so, yeah, I guess I'm sort of rambling here, but it's just sort of like, I think we are looking outward a lot to find validation inward.
No intrinsic value is being built. So when you have intrinsic value, that's built on yourself and what you have accomplished and what you have done to build value.
Yeah.
And if you're finding value outside yourself, that's called extrinsic value. And it's not real. Well, it's not that it's not real. It's not very sturdy.
It's superficial.
It's not very sturdy. Well, I have a couple questions. I have a devil's advocate question.
All right.
And I like devil's advocate questions because I think that they force us to, stretch out a little bit.
Yeah.
But as you're talking, okay, I believe that all people are created equal, no matter what their race, color, gender, age, whatever. I really do believe in complete equality. I also wonder sometimes if, quote, traditional roles, which we are trying as a society to kind of move away from, if they aren't important somehow in building relationships, meaning this. I think it may be confusing for boys sometimes to have a girl not need them, not have an essential role, to have no place, so to speak, in their growth and development.
Yeah.
As we've been kind of teaching boys, I think. I don't have boys, I have girls, where I say you can do anything. You can do everything. You don't need anybody.
Yeah.
And you can say the same exact thing to a boy. You have everything. You don't need anybody. But you do need each other. I mean, I'm clearly talking about a hetero relationship, but I think it really applies to there's usually, in my opinion, and this may be a very ignorant opinion, but there's usually kind of a male energy in a relationship, even if it's two women or two men.
Right.
There's always kind of a male
masculine,
energy.
feminine.
Exactly.
Right?
That's
like,
what I mean. Yes.
You can be a man and be feminine.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm married to a feminine man.
Yeah.
I'm the masculine person in this relationship most of the time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I go, there's certain things that he needs to feel needed for that I actually don't need him for. But I have to consciously go, okay, I'm going to, quote, need him, because that helps him feel value when he does that for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you go, I say cook pot roast for dinner and you go to the store. That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean it in like an abstract way, but the way that we kind of recognize it is poo-pooed on. Is like, the man makes the money, the woman stays home barefoot and pregnant. And that's not what I mean.
Yeah.
And at the same time, those roles were so clear that it was kind of easier to manage in the context. It's like, not that a woman should be offered, you can be a nurse or a teacher, as that's your two choices. But like my aunts could be a nurse or a teacher, and that's it.
Yeah.
That is it. So if you were a woman who wanted to be a journalist, that was really off the beaten path
right.
back in the day. Now, believe me, I am so happy that the world is open to every woman for whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
But the simplicity of the choice, I wonder if the simplicity helps you hone in on other things that are important that have nothing to do with that choice.
Mhm.
So I wonder how that applies to dating, you
Yeah.
know? Like prom. Prom now is bring a friend, bring whoever you want. We don't care. Bring your dog, practically.
Yeah.
We don't care. But
Yeah.
in my day, prom,
Yeah.
you went with a date. Even
Yeah.
if it wasn't your boyfriend,
Yeah.
you went with the opposite sex and they asked you to the prom. The boy asked the girl to the prom. The
Yeah.
boy brought the girl flowers. The boy opened the door for so the boy knew what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
So now the boy doesn't know what he's supposed to do. So now the boy's like, well, do I ask her or do I not? Or does she ask me? Or do I pay for dinner? Or am I offending her by assuming that does she think now that I think she can't afford to pay for dinner?
Yeah.
Now, and what am I supposed to do? I wonder sometimes if that becomes very confusing for boys, men, boys. I don't know.
I hear what you're saying. I think what you're saying is that with strict gender roles, there's a script. And when you don't know what to do, you can follow the script.
Yes.
And the other thing I hear you saying is that people need to feel needed.
Yes.
And I think independence is an important thing. But I think maybe what we as a culture to sort of combat the sort of restrictive nature of gender roles is that we are saying we don't need anybody, right? When connection, again, addiction is the opposite of connection, right?
Okay.
Addiction is filling a need, right? And through connecting with others, you fill that need. And so in service of bucking gender traditional roles, we are eclipsing connection. And
that's that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
That is, I don't think that we need to be in the you buy pot roast.
Yeah.
I pay the bills. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like I'm not in that.
Yeah.
That's not what my
No,
life looks
I don't
like.
think that's what you're saying, but I hear what you're saying in that with traditional gender roles, at least there was something that you could follow when you were 16 and you didn't fucking know what the fuck you were doing.
Exactly. And now these kids are left to like, well, porn,
it's like, oh, I battery ram her. Or
which is not right.
No.
So there's no, you're right. You're 100%. Thank you so much for explaining. Cause I was like, I'm going to sound like.
No, but I hear what you're saying. Because also like gender roles are obviously culturally conscripted, right? Like suburbia was like a post World War II, like government mandated, like GI Bills were coming out so men could go to college and marry a wife and have a child and move to suburbia and have a carbon copy house and everybody had the American dream
and build a middle class.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, you know, obviously we are in reaction to that.
Sure.
And maybe, you know, in certain ways we kind of like go like
overcorrected
in order to sort of land in this middle ground. Because I think ultimately like yes, there's like the traditional masculine man and the traditional feminine woman.
Sure.
But I think what you're sort of alluding to is that like within a relationship, there are inherently masculine traits and feminine traits. And despite whatever your gender is, there are sort of like giving and receiving roles.
Yes.
And I can understand how like for a 25-year-old guy who's like, I feel empty and alone and isolated, how do I even reach across the table and say hello?
Yes, that's exactly what I mean.
And it's
even for a girl, I have to be 10 feet tall and bulletproof.
Right.
I can't be the damsel in distress.
For me, it was like, well, I can fuck anybody I want and I won't feel anything.
And you can go fuck yourself if you have judgment on me.
Yeah.
I completely understand. I understand it, but I don't know that it's healthy.
Oh, no, it's not healthy at all.
It's not healthy to be you go buy pot roast, but what is the healthy? Like, what is the healthy? And I think culturally there's, like you said, there's no script.
Yeah.
So then everyone is left going, because I have one daughter who is 10 feet tall and bulletproof in this area where I feel she's going to have a hard time. Just being vulnerable enough, because another message, and I think you said this, but just in case, I think another message is, especially for women, like I was raised by someone who went through, you know, the women's movement.
Yeah.
So she became an independent fierce woman, told me verbatim, if you become a stay-at-home mom, I will lose all respect for you. And I became a stay-at-home mom because that's what I wanted. Not because that's what my husband told me to do.
Yeah.
It's because it's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have one kid who would do that and one kid who would never do that because of that thought. What my mom says to me
Yeah.
is in some ways what culture says
To women.
to women.
Yeah.
Is like, you must not go back into that traditional stay-at-home mom who takes care of her family and takes care of her husband even.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that as a choice.
Yeah.
And I think that one of my kids thinks there's something very wrong with that as a choice. And that makes me sad because I go, I didn't get married till I was 32.
Yeah.
And so I had all these years of being a fully independent human being who paid all of her bills, who busted her ass, who wrote screenplays, one that got made. I had success.
That's amazing.
And I said to myself, I'm not missing a minute of my kids.
Yeah.
Because 20 years from now, I can go back to writing screenplays.
Yeah.
But I'm not missing a minute of my kids. And there's nothing wrong with either of those choices.
But there's choice in that, right?
There's choice,
like,
yes.
And I think, I don't know. I think like we are in a culture where even on the video of this podcast, people are going to start spewing whatever they think, right? And even though you are empowered in your choice, someone is going to project their whatever onto you.
Of course.
And I think that's problematic. I don't think that everything that happens in your head needs to come out onto the screen.
No, it doesn't.
And I mean, what were you going to say? I mean, I just like, I don't know. I've been sort of chewing on this sort of like this tendency for people to just like splatter their opinions on everybody. And it just makes me think of Salt and Pepper saying opinions are like assholes and everyone's got one.
Everybody's got one, baby.
Like, and I think what is hard is that when we are monolithic about stay-at-home moms, we eclipse the people who are doing it by choice, and we are actually doing a disservice to the people who are not doing it by choice because they don't feel empowered to make a choice in the first place.
Right. That's right.
So it's sort of like, I don't know. It's interesting. It's sort of like, so this is sort of a tangent, but Julia Cameron talks about how like fame aspiration is about what do they think about me versus what am I going to do next? Right. And so fame as a superstructure is its own monster. But I think when we make choices based off of how we think people will perceive us, we are not living in our true authenticity, our true intention.
Absolutely.
And so, and the other thing I was going to say is like, it wasn't until I was now that I was able to understand that my mom was like a full human being before me. And so though your daughter may be like, I will never make that choice. And she may never make that choice, right?
Totally. Yeah.
But I think also there will be another depth to the layer of her understanding of you as a person once she goes out in the world and is like, oh shit, like my mom was 25 once too. You know?
No, I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
For my kid.
Yeah.
I think my kids see me pretty clearly already.
Yeah.
And I think as they get older, it's only going to get clearer.
Yeah.
I've made it very clear from the beginning that I am a very flawed human being.
Yeah.
And that I've had a very dynamic life.
Yeah.
I'm lucky in that I'm super communicative.
Yeah.
Not everybody is.
Yeah.
I'm just lucky that I am. And I worked hard at it. But something you just said sparked something and I lost it for a second.
Well, I'll sort of continue and then if you think of it, just tell me to shut up. But or just politely say I have a comment.
I'll just raise my hand.
Perfect. And so post college, that's when Tinder started. And I think Tinder feeds the addict in me in that it is sensation without feeling, but it's pure serotonin. Audre Lorde has an essay called Uses of the Erotic as Power. And she talks about how the erotic being, you know, sort of like the sensual, artistic, sort of base human instinct has been beaten out of women and how the opposite of the erotic is the pornographic. And she uses this example of margarine bags that her family got during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, there were these little yellow pellets that you had to break open and disperse the yellow throughout it. And so she describes the erotic as like a seed in each of us that needs to be dispersed.
Mm-hmm.
However, the pornographic, which is sensation without feeling, is sort of the dominant culture. And I would say she wrote this in 1970. Like that is way more the case. Like Instagram, Twitter, like just typing on a screen your opinions because you want to feel seen, but also it's just going to be words on a screen with a little handle that isn't even your name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that is purely sensation without feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think specifically because of COVID, because we were all behind screens, because we didn't have that interpersonal connection, we are all so used to the pornographic that we have forgotten the sensation of the erotic.
Interesting.
And the erotic isn't purely sexual. The erotic is like, I put this coat on because I like the color, and I burned an incense, and I, just sort of activating all your senses and prioritizing those senses. And so when I say Tinder is pornographic, I mean that it's purely sensation without feeling. It's the simulation of connection without any actual connection.
Right.
And so a week after I graduated, met the personal trainer, dated him for 2 years. Could go down that saga. But after that, big Tinder head. Like I've done a lot of Tindering. I've done it around the world. I've met people. I've made mistakes. I've done a fucked up shit because of Tinder. And I re-downloaded it last week. And it fed the addict in me because it was just like
swipe.
And part of that is like, I think there's an inherent psychological feeling of disposability, both of people you match with. Like how many times have I matched with somebody who I was like, oh, I hope they match with me. And then I match them and I never message them. Or,
So you're just looking for the match, which has no meat. It's like eating the skin off of fried chicken.
Exactly.
It tastes awesome, super crunchy, and you'll die.
Yeah.
Over time, you can't get any nutrition out of that. It'll kill you. Truly. Interesting. That's really interesting.
I deleted it off my phone. My friend watched me do it. She's like, you don't need that. I was like, you're right. I don't need that. Like someone was like, you're not going to look back on this year and be like, I wish I had dated, like it was I didn't relapse, but it was sort of like my addict brain being like, I need something.
Yeah. I need some stimulation here. Yeah, that deep connection. I wonder what, I mean, I think it's got to be technology that is making us not have this deep connection, but that's the obvious piece.
Yeah.
I think sometimes something that was different in my generation that's different in yours is we had 3 TV channels.
Yeah.
So pretty much everybody watched the same show. So you and I could have a conversation. I could have a conversation with a guy at the post office.
Yeah.
Because most likely we were all watching Dallas.
Yeah.
Everybody watched Dukes of Hazzard.
Right.
Everybody watched Gilligan's Island. Now there's just so many options again with the options that we're presented with. We're scattered to the wind.
Yeah.
So there's no connection. Like when Game of Thrones was really big, I was like, oh my God, this is like when I was a kid. Everybody I knew watched Game of Thrones. There were so few people who didn't watch that show that you could talk to anybody. There was a common thread.
Yeah.
There was maybe a script, so to speak. The same with church. So few people go to church now. I don't go to church now. But I grew up going to church, and then everybody you knew went to church.
Right.
And even if you're not religious or don't agree with what you're saying, it was like a community activity.
Right.
Where you showed up and saw the same people every week.
Yeah.
And it was stable, reliable, predictable. And it created a connection. So we just have so many options, and we're so open now that I think that it's hard to foster those. So how do you actively make that happen for children?
Yeah.
One of it, I think, is to play a team sport
that
you continue on throughout your childhood, but not everybody wants to do that. Not
Yeah.
everybody wants to play softball. I mean, some people would rather be an artist, which is pretty singular.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it hard because we don't have those kind of like streamlined avenues to go through. And
Yeah.
something else that you were talking about. Another piece of shitty part of our past that I think actually was good. Okay?
I'm ready.
Even though I still think it's shitty.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say this because I feel like, listen, I'm a glass half full motherfucker.
Yeah.
I will find the positive
Yeah.
in a piece of dirt.
Well, now I can't wait to hear what you're going to say.
Okay. I was a cheerleader.
Okay. So was I.
I would go to the seamstress and have my skirts hemmed so that when I walked, you could see my bloomers. Because I wanted the male attention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I was safe in that environment. Because I had known the boys I went to high school with since birth, practically.
Yeah.
There was no threat of anybody, no harm.
Yeah.
The buddy, I wanted him to go, woo, Leanne.
You wanted to be objectified.
I wanted to be objectified. And I don't know that was entirely unhealthy.
Yeah.
I think it was partly unhealthy.
Yeah.
But the part of it that went, look what I got and don't you want it? And for them to say, actually, I do.
Yeah.
Is in some ways a healthy back and forth of engaging in healthy sexually driven activity that's not pornographic.
Yeah.
That's innocent, flirty, but feels good. And we all know it ain't going anywhere.
So
do you see what I mean?
I do. I totally do.
But there's no way in hell any girl I know in high school now would admit to that.
Yeah.
Even if they were doing it.
Yeah.
They would never admit to it because the thing is, it's nice to be desired by a man.
Mm-hmm.
It is nice. And part of men are so visual that part of what instigates their desire is the visual. And so even if it is that you flip your hair to get a guy's attention, you know, women would never behave like that these days because it's kind of antiquated. But the end result is this kind of interaction between a man and a woman that's a communication sort of that we don't allow. I don't think it's allowed anymore because then you're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Right.
Who hems their skirts so short that they show your bloomers? What are you, a whore? What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Where I had no intention of sleeping with anybody.
Yeah.
That whistled at my ass.
Well, I think maybe that is the distinction, right? It's like, I think it's hard to seek sexual validation without someone feeling that they own you, right? Like you had the understanding with those peers of yours that like it wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
But like walking down the streets of New York, like I, grabbed her. It's
me
different.
too in New York City.
Yeah,
that's different.
But it's interesting because I do think like, and it's something that I hear like older women say a little bit more, and also like I experienced too. Like I love attention. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, we love to flirt.
Yeah, but there is sort of this. I think it's the distinction between being desired and being colonized. Like sort of like
totally.
Like the difference between
but I think these days kids get confused. They think they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Whereas, for instance, I went to a Sweet 16 birthday party.
Yeah.
And there was a girl who was very flirtatious.
Yeah.
And she was automatically judged by every girl in that room.
Wow.
And I thought, that's not okay.
Yeah.
She's flirting with it. They're not leaving the party.
Yeah.
He's not hiking up her skirt.
Yeah.
She's just being coy and flirty and he's responding.
Yeah.
And they're having a good time.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Nobody's hurting anybody.
Well, I wonder if it's like both like this experience of like, oh, that's so antiquated, but also like a Like that girl is comfortable with herself in a way
Totally.
that maybe the other girls aren't.
I completely agree.
And in my high school, there were a couple girls who were like systematically targeted for being like hypersexual. And I don't mean that in like a sort of pejorative term, but it's just like they wore short shorts and they like flirted with boys or whatever. And like I was hyper cognizant of that judgment. And like I was hypersexual and having a fuck ton of sex.
Right.
But no one knew.
No one knew, right?
And it's like, what's worse? Like hiding and keeping a secret and being ashamed and afraid of what people think of you, or just wholly yourself. And like at a high school reunion, our 5-year reunion, I like went up to one of them and I was like, I'm so sorry I didn't defend you. Like, I'm so sorry that like, because like one time we were in a college counseling, I'd had like rigorous, I mean, of course I had rigorous college counseling in my school. And the college counselor was like, well, when you show up for your college counseling interviews, like you can't wear short skirts like blank. Like named her verbatim and shamed her in front of everybody.
Oh, that's terrible.
And that was just like a Tuesday, you know?
That was just like a Tuesday.
Yeah, it's just like, well, she does wear short shorts or whatever. And like, it's such a double bind where it's just like,
it is.
We go all the way over here and then we end up actually being in the same place.
Yeah. I feel like kids these days are in a predicament.
Yeah.
You know, they're in a bit of a predicament.
Yeah.
Because somehow being sexual, I feel like sometimes maybe it is because of porn is not seen in any way as healthy.
Well, I think there's a difference between sexual and sensual. And we mistake sensual as sexual. Like flirting is a sensual experience.
Totally, yeah.
Sure, it's sexually motivated, but you're not fucking jacking off in front of everybody.
No.
Your skirt isn't up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No.
And like, and that ties back into the erotic, right? Sort of like the experience of being desired, the facilitation of connection. I don't, and I sort of, this goes back to like sort of being the third grade girl who was like flirting with everybody. And then sixth grade hit, I was shunned by the whole sixth grade class.
Why? For flirting?
Because every girl decided that for a different reason, that they were mad at me. And I think it has to do with the fact that like I was queen bee of elementary school. It was middle school. Everybody's hormones were raging. And they realized they didn't have to abide by the same hierarchy anymore. And that's what I learned. Like, if you're at the top, you're gonna fall. Like, and that's why I'm like, I don't want to be famous. I don't want any of that stuff. Like, I just want to keep chugging along my path in a way that like no one can topple me under. Like, I'm so secure in myself that no matter what people say, even if the whole sixth grade class decides not to talk to me again, I will be fine.
Right.
But for me, my mom took me to the nutritionist the next week. I said, Mom, I want to go to a therapist, and she took me to the nutritionist.
Same.
Yeah. And, I love Southern California. And that's when my eating disorder began, right? And that was the moment in which, maybe I'm kind of putting this together now, it's like through the lack of a connection, my addiction to starvation began, right? And that was a solitary activity. And in that moment, I stopped being that like bubbly, flirtatious girl, right? I learned to be ashamed of myself. I learned to hide my body. I learned that I couldn't be small enough, right? And now, like, coming back into my body, like, I'm a very bubbly, like, I'll flirt with everybody. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and I think flirtation requires a sense of confidence that I think can be intimidating and alienating, and other people who don't feel confident enough to flirt want to attack the person who is flirting.
That is a very good point. That is a really interesting perspective. That's probably true, because this young lady at the Sweet 16 I was talking about definitely is confident in that part of who she is, and the other young ladies definitely were not.
Yeah.
So I just was, I was just a parent observing.
Yeah.
I tried. It wasn't my kids' Sweet 16.
Yeah.
I was just there as a ride for a couple of 16-year-olds. So I kept out of it. But it was an interesting observation how I was like, she's just flirting. She's not doing anything.
Yeah.
And your concept of what she's doing, where did you get it? Like, where did you get that? Where did you say that's wrong? Where did you get that concept? Who told you that? Is it because we're in Me Too and we can't have women be sexual or sensual because then it invites a predator? I mean, where did that come from? I was trying to figure out where it came from, because is that where it came from? Because
that's interesting.
If you, especially 5 years ago, 4 years ago, when all the Me Too stuff was really, really heavy. Well, what was the message? Men are predators. Look how many of them. Yeah. This guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And don't get me wrong, some people are predators, not just men. Yeah. But lots of people are not. Yeah. But all we see in the media back in that time, and this would have been, let's see, that would have been
2016, 2015?
Right around in there. Then, yeah, I don't know. It makes it very complicated because the Me Too movement is real. It should be happening.
It's important, but what's the difference between a predator and a miscommunication?
And a miscommunication and a miscommunication. That's exactly right. Yeah. And a guy just not understanding how to read a signal.
Well, because we're not taught to actually communicate with each other.
No, we're not. No, kids aren't these days. No.
I mean, it's through a phone, it's through a screen. I mean, how many times have I been in a restaurant and there's like a 5-year-old and they're just like staring at an iPad?
And it's just like, I hate it.
It's like part of being a kid is suffering through those meals and like having your mom be like, sit up straight, you can't fall asleep in public.
Absolutely.
Like, what is that doing to their brains?
What is it doing? Is teaching them. That's another thing about the hookup culture. I wonder how much of it is just instant gratification. I need to get to home base. All this like first base, second base. So I said to Bert, after we got married, we'd been married a few years, and I was really depressed one day. And I don't get depressed ever. I hardly ever have a down day. And I was like, I'm really down today. And I figured out why. And he's like, why? And I said, I don't want you to take this wrong. I love you. I'm super happy. I'm really happily married, but I just realized I will never again have a first kiss. Ever. And that makes me really sad, because that anticipation and that want of that first kiss is so awesome. Yeah. Not just the first kiss from the first boyfriend. You know, I also had my first kiss in first grade, just saying. But I mean, like with someone you really like, that you have a connection with, that you hope to God he kisses you. Yeah. Please, this is going to be amazing.
New relationship energy.
Exactly. That very first everything that happens with a new relationship. Yeah. When you're married, that's over. Yeah. It's never going to happen again. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't stay married. It just means that for me, it was good to recognize that and to kind of mourn it. Yeah. And go, oh, that's really sad. That part of my life is over. Yeah. And I'm sad for that. I'm happy for the rest of it. Everything else is going on. But there's no honesty in that.
But there's so many people who would have felt that way and would have gone out, gotten drunk, kissed a stranger, or would have lashed out and been like, fuck you. You know, like there's, I guess I'm trying to say, like, I want to not that you need to be commended for this, but like your ability to identify what you were feeling and communicate it to your partner so that they can understand why you are feeling the way that you're feeling, so that you can discuss it, connect over it, and then you can mourn it, right?
Yes, like, yes. Unfortunately, with my partner, we did that. And then like a week later, he's in a complete spiral because he's not going to have a first kiss again either. And he's like, I can't believe my life is over. My life is totally over. How dare you tell me that? I would never have thought of that. He's brought it up over and over and over. You've ruined my life by telling me. And I was like, dude, if I had reacted like this to you, you would have been devastated. Yeah. Lucky for you, I take nothing personally. Yeah. And I know that you are just super overreactive. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, it's sort of like the sensation without feeling, right? Like, I think so much, I mean, if Tinder is like facilitating the illusion of connection without the actual experience and feeling of connection. And I think it's so hard. Like people will say it's like so hard to meet people nowadays or whatever. And I've yet to get into a romantic relationship from someone I met in real life. And I think part of that is like the flirtatious little girl doesn't, like, I don't let her out much because I was ridiculed for that and shunned for that. And I think maybe part of my own recovery process will be like, when is it safe to bring her out? Yeah. You know, and during a recovery meeting, no. Not the space, right?
Well,
but like
no, but
at a party, or like when I'm hanging out with a group of friends or whatever it is, like I think distinguishing when it feels safe to feel embodied.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally we should be able to feel embodied at all times.
Mm-hmm.
But also there's the world and people and predators and whatever, but I think when it comes down to it, and I think that's why I'm so thankful for It Doesn't Have to Be Awkward, is that we created a framework so that people can sort of have a guideline for how to facilitate that connection. Right.
Script.
So again, like if you trust yourself, have compassion for yourself, and know your own boundaries, where it's like, you know what? I like short skirts.
Yeah.
And I feel comfortable in a room at a Sweet 16 flirting with people, That being said, like I have to trust the person that I'm flirting with. I have to feel compassion for themselves, and I have to respect their boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, you don't have to respect the boundary of the girl across the room who's shooting you laser eyes. You know what I mean? Like, you're not trying to impress her.
Right.
She's not in your corner. If anything, she might feel jealousy over the fact that you were able to feel safe and embodied in that environment.
Yeah.
But just because someone is projecting their own experience onto you doesn't mean you need to internalize it.
That is absolutely right. One of the best things, I don't know how I learned this one. I think I might just be wired this way.
Yeah.
But I take almost nothing personally, ever.
That's so nice.
There's almost nothing anybody could do that I would go, how dare they do that to me?
Yeah.
I always feel like that's your problem. I may do something wrong. It's not to say that I am without fault or I don't make mistakes. That's not what I mean. But like if someone posts something online like, boy, Bert really married a middle-aged hag. I go, well, you got problems. Because I am middle-aged, but I don't think I'm a hag.
Yeah.
So float on.
Yeah.
None of that. I will read every comment, and they're mostly good, but sometimes they're not. They're nasty.
Yeah.
And I don't even feel it. It's
That's
like
impressive.
It just bounces off. But I've always been that way. And I think part of what you're talking about is not being worried about the girl across the way.
Mm-hmm.
I never even saw the girl across the way.
Yeah.
I'm in myself. And maybe that's selfish somewhat, but what's going on here in my area? And if I have this saying that Bert and I use all the time. You run your own race. If you run your race, then you will get where you need to be. And you don't need to worry about anybody else's race.
I love that.
Let them run their race. You run your race.
Oh, I love that.
This is what my race is about.
But that's, I think, maybe going back to sort of like this proliferation of images and media and all these different things, like the tyranny of choice.
The tyranny of choice.
Absolutely the tyranny of choice, right? Like, what do I watch? What do I listen to? What is the right thing to consume?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we're surprised that there's such a proliferation of eating disorders. And it's like, how are we supposed to know how to feed our bodies when we are inundated with images that we're supposed to be filtering in at all times?
That, and you could be paleo, you could be keto, you could be vegan, you could be vegetarian, you could be, I mean, come on. There's so many choices. Yeah. And you don't just go, everybody eats a meat and 3.
Right.
Everybody's meat and 3.
A sense of morality, right? It's like, if you do this wrong, then you are inherently bad. And
exactly.
You should feel ashamed.
Yeah.
But I love what you're saying. We're running your own race. It's like, you don't have to see a TV show that depicts your experience in order for your life to be valid.
100%.
And if you want to see your life experience on the screen, write it.
Exactly.
Direct it.
Exactly.
Star in it. Exactly. Sell it to Netflix.
Yeah.
Like, but that being said, once you do that, you will realize that that doesn't actually validate your experience one iota.
No.
It's just a representation of your experience, and it's not actually, nothing is going to capture the day-to-day experience of being trapped in your human meat suit, living your goddamn life.
Right.
Like, and
why do you need it captured? Why do you need it?
Yeah.
Just be in it.
Right. Yeah.
Just be here. Let 5 minutes ago go.
Yeah.
And just be right here. And I wonder if that's part of what's hard about dating. Is just simply being right here.
Well, investing in yourself, right?
Mhm.
Like being like, well, what do I like? Do I like to
Yes.
meditate? Do I like to golf? Like,
Yes.
and then spending time doing the things you like.
Yes. And then you meet somebody who likes
Also,
that too.
like, yeah.
And then I know so many people ask me, how do you make friends? And I'm like, the number one way I make friends is volunteering. Volunteering for something that I want to volunteer for, because invariably the other people volunteering there have a common interest.
Yeah.
So then you go, okay, well then who do I like in this pool of people who have at least this one common interest?
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, I like that person. Let's go have coffee and see if I like them more.
Yeah.
It's not that deep. It's really not that deep.
Well, it's super interesting, kind of going back to the beginning where I was saying that I chameleon onto everybody I've ever met in my entire life. And
I don't believe that, by the way.
I don't do it fully, but
I don't believe it.
I mean, right now I'm single.
Well, no, I think it may feel like you are like that more than it actually is. That would be my guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the people pleaser aspect, right?
Well, yeah.
It's like, you like cats, I will get a cat.
Yeah.
You like drugs, I will do drugs. Like that sort of the easy solution to feeling connected is to change your desires, your interests in order to meet that person. When in fact, you do not have to change yourself to connect with others.
You don't have to change yourself to connect with others. You don't have to change yourself ever. But you do sometimes have to set yourself aside for a minute to pick yourself back up. Give you an example.
Oh,
My lovely husband,
yes.
when he comes back to town after being gone for a while, has something called reentry.
Interesting.
Now, reentry, I've heard from lots of people, actors, performers, people who work on film sets and are gone for months at a time. They all seem to have this same thing where Bert's been in a bus with 6 or 8 guys doing whatever the fuck he wants all day, every day for a month. So he comes back to this house with 3 women, he's been around no women, that have their own lives and their own schedule, and no one's catering to him. And there's an adjustment, right? And at some point in the first 48 hours, there's a meltdown. And the meltdown is the reentry. So
it sounds like cult deprogramming.
It's sort of like that. Yeah. It's kind of like a toddler in transition. When you say to the toddler, it's bath time, and they're like, fuck you, I'm in my mud pie, go fuck yourself. I got mud all over me and I stay in there. Okay, finally, I'll go get in the bathtub. Fine. That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
Is a toddler in a tantrum.
Yeah.
So I have to put myself aside.
Yeah.
Over here on the shelf. I know exactly what I feel. I know exactly what's really going on here in this moment. And none of it's real.
But isn't that compassion?
Is it?
I would say it's compassionate to put someone else's needs before your own when they're in crisis.
Well, yeah, I guess that is compassion. But that I don't know that kids these days understand how to do that. I think they're like, no, you're offending me. Oh, no, you're offending me. Oh, no, you're offending me. There's no like, hold on. What's going on for you? I know what's going on for me, but what's going on for you? And if the reverse asks the same question, then you have a conversation. Now, Bert never asked me what's going on for you.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of his meltdown last night, I went, just one time, I wish you would say, instead of you're angry, say, how are you feeling? And let me answer that question. And I might say, I'm angry. But now you're not making an assumption. You're not writing a script that's not real. You're actually letting me tell you exactly what's happening. It's trust. It's trust, right? You have to trust me to tell you what's going on, but you don't. You say, you're angry and you're... Last night he was like, you're in histrionics. And I was like, actually, I'm just kind of sitting here sipping of water. There's one person's in histrionics and it ain't me. So why don't you ask me something and then I can tell you. But anyway, that's kind of a tangent. But I wonder what I observe anyway is that everyone's fighting for their own camp.
Everyone is in self.
Everyone is in self. And no one is able to say, well, what about that person?
How do I be of service?
How do I be of service? So how do you teach? How do you learn that at your age? Or how do you learn at your age to make the real connection instead of going straight to the hookup culture?
Yeah.
How do you learn that?
I think listening is a skill that has to be practiced.
Well, 100%.
And we're able to watch, right? I watched a movie. I watched a TV show. I listened to a podcast, right? That's sort of bearing witness. But I think when it comes to listening or consuming or whatever, we have practice with a screen and we don't necessarily have practice with another live human being. And so, and I'm just spitballing here, and this is maybe like me saying this more to myself than anybody else, but like understanding that interpersonal relationships are ongoing and flexible and complicated and chaotic, and that in order to really show up fully in them, you have to both open up and receive and give when the other person is open to receiving, right? And so it's sort of, again, that's sort of like the idea of the masculine and the feminine, right? It's like, I'm in the masculine when I'm telling you you're being histrionic, right?
Yep.
And it could be perceived as the feminine is sort of like the open receiving, whatever. And so if it helps sort of like thinking about like, am I in the masculine or the feminine, or am I in balance right now? Like, am I capable of both sharing and listening? So I guess I would say one is just self-knowledge, right? Like recognizing sort of what energy is dominating in that moment, because we are all inherently masculine, feminine, and non-binary. And we vacillate between these things.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Yeah. And I think if you are so dominant in one arena, it does a disservice to you and the people around you.
I agree. To you. I mean, what I always say to Bert when he gets in those places where he can't hear me because he's so upset is I say to him, you are doing yourself a disservice to assume that you know what I'm feeling, because you're not allowing yourself to feel better.
Yeah.
Because maybe what you think I'm feeling is not what I'm feeling at all. And that might make you feel better.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to allow that, there's nothing I can do to help you.
In recovery, they say a lot of the time, like if you're like struggling and you're in self, they say pick up the phone and call someone else and just listen.
Just listen. I know that's interesting. You say that. Boy, I am super smart. I didn't know I was so smart.
No, I mean, I knew
just
it.
Kidding. Bert last night was struggling with something, and he was like, I can't get my brain to stop spinning. And I said, then start asking questions. Start asking. His family was over. I said, start asking people questions. How's work?
Yes. Well, I think that is the answer to your question of how do we facilitate connection, right? Ask questions.
Ask questions.
Don't tell. Wait until you're asked.
And be curious. So where are you from? So what are you doing? So what are your dreams? So what do you want?
Because there's nothing more tantalizing than when someone asks you a question and actually listens to what you're saying without offering. Like, I'm an improv teacher, right? Yes and is the foundation of improv, right?
Yeah, totally.
But I think when it comes to dating, it's just about saying yes to that person and to the next question.
Yeah.
And then giving them the opportunity, if they are so compelled, to ask you a question, right? I'm not like, where are you from? Well, I'm from Pasadena. Don't be so quick to answer your own questions.
Yes, that's great. Someone used to say to me, listening is not waiting your turn to talk.
Oh.
Listening is listening and taking in what the other person says. And you may not get a turn to talk. That's okay. And if you don't want a turn to talk, then you know you're really listening.
Yeah.
So
early on in recovery, I heard someone say, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. You want a partner who can listen to you. And also, I think, so one, ask questions, and two, just continue to cultivate yourself so that when someone does ask you a question, you have an interesting answer.
Okay, so when you start dating, are you going to go, how many questions is this guy asking?
Oh my God. And now I'm going to start doing that. Because there's so many dates that I've been on that I was just like this
guy won't stop talking.
And then I was like, I guess I have to fuck him,
That's not good.
I know, it's a mistake.
That's the only way I can get him to shut up.
Seriously though. And most of the time I was stoned too. So then I was like, it wasn't that bad. And the next day I'd be like, that was bad.
Well, sex is so much fun when it is with a real connection.
Yeah.
And that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be empty It's supposed to be really fun
Mm-hmm.
and fulfilling
And funny and
and
awkward
funny
and like
yeah, and all those
it's,
things.
I like to think that sex should be you should be so comfortable with your sex partner that if someone farts, you laugh.
Well, maybe the first time it happens, you cry. But after that, just saying.
Well, it
Maybe the
depends.
first time is super embarrassing. You're like, oh my God, you're going to tell a joke about this. And they do. Sometimes just saying, I don't know.
So
I mean,
funny.
I've heard that happens to people. But yeah. Yeah, you're right. It should be something that where if you fart, it's okay and it's funny and
Literally, like our human bodies are these like gushy, squishy, like fucked up things, and like I think coming to a potential partner with an air of curiosity and a deep sense of listening and but also understanding like that they have worth and that they have something to contribute and add is the foundation of an interesting partnership. Because now I've been in partnerships where like as I said before, I felt like I had a rope tied around my waist and was attached to an anvil and I had a dull knife and I couldn't saw it fast enough.
Right,
you know,
right.
like there's an Israeli saying that something like you know, the traditional saying is like we fall in love, but in Israeli they say, or in Hebrew, excuse me, they say we rise in love.
Oh.
And so the idea being that like your partnership should uplift you.
Yes, it should. Yes.
And I have not yet to experience that, which is why I deleted Tinder because I don't think I'm going to find I'm not going to find my hot air balloon on Tinder.
No, maybe not.
I'm going to find 3 bags of sand and maybe a punch to the gut.
Well, you know, I know people who've had success with Tinder.
Yeah.
But it's not many.
Yeah.
But it does work for some people. But I think those people, the people that I know it works for, were really
got my scary mind.
Oh, I hate that. We're really, I don't know,
ready.
Ready's a good word. Really ready. A little older too.
Yeah.
In their 30s. Ready.
Yeah.
Some of this dating shit you just have to do to figure
God.
out.
I've done so much dumb shit.
But you have to.
Yeah.
You really do. Because I know when I was dating the guy before Bert, I was like, this isn't going anywhere. Let's bounce. Whereas before, I would have hung out a little longer and tried a little harder and did a little more work here and, you know, muscled a little bit over there.
Yeah.
And when the writing was on the wall, I was like, okay, I'm good. Let's go.
Someone told me recently, red flags don't turn pink.
That's brilliant.
And I was like, damn, I'm over here with bleach being like, is it done yet? Is it white? I'm like, no, it's still red.
Still red. That's a really good saying.
I know. My friend said that to me. And I was like, you just changed my life.
Yeah, totally.
They'll wave red flags. They'll fucking be a fucking flag girl doing a baton dance. And I'm just like, I still think it's working.
It might work.
It's just,
but you know, I had a couple red flags with Bert, and
Yeah.
I had conversations with myself saying, if you walk forward, you have to be willing to help carry this red flag. So if you're going to carry the red flag, then you can't complain about it. You can't try to change it. You can't bring the bleach out and say, let's make it pink.
Yeah.
You have to go, all right, we got this red flag. You know, like he's, you know, very messy.
Yeah.
And I'm very tidy. And I had to sit with myself and say, can you carry this red flag for the next 50 years?
Yeah.
Like, really? And I said, yes. The rest of it is totally worth that.
Yeah.
It's going to suck sometimes. And I'm going to get frustrated and aggravated, which I do sometimes. Yeah. But I can carry this particular red flag.
Well, I think that's probably an interesting insight that, like, this sort of whitewash monolithic experience of romance and that it's all rainbow and sunshines and whatever. It's like, no one is ever going to be perfect.
No.
Perfection doesn't exist.
No.
Human beings are inherently flawed. And so if there is a red flag, there's like the red flag of like he has another family versus the red flag of like sometimes he picks his nose and I don't like that, you know? If you can't live with him picking his nose, that's knowledge, right? It's like, okay, I can handle burping, but I can't handle like eating his boogers. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
That'd be disgusting. That's a red flag for me. But sort of deciding what you can live with, what would be an annoyance versus what's a deal breaker.
Completely. Super important.
Yeah.
That's what I had to decide too for Bert, because the slob thing is real. for Mr. Kreischer. It's not a joke.
Yeah.
It's for real. It's like major sometimes. When he's here for about 10 or 12 days, I'm like, okay, I need a day off so I can get this shit back together. Because he's never going to get it back together. And I'm tripping over size 12 shoes every 4 steps. And it's driving me crazy.
Those are flippers.
I know, right? He's got big feet.
Damn.
One of the first times I was pregnant with Georgia. This is one of the times where I went, this might have been a bigger red flag than I thought. I was pregnant with Georgia and I couldn't see over my belly.
Oh, no.
And I was carrying a laundry hamper.
Oh, no.
And he left his suitcase in the floor and I fell in the suitcase.
Oh, my God. That reminds me.
I was like, he knows I'm pregnant. He knows that I can't see my own feet. Why would he leave the suitcase here?
That's like my mom when she was pregnant with triplets. My dad left the toilet seat up.
Oh,
and
God.
she fell into the toilet and was stuck for like an hour.
Oh, my God.
Till my dad got home from radio and fished her out.
Oh, my God.
So they have separate bathrooms now.
That's not a bad plan. Not a bad plan.
That was like 1999 when they moved to the house. My mom was like, I need a different fucking bathroom. I don't want to hear him coming in from radio and I'm not falling fucking in again. Just like, we heard that story over and over again. And now I'm like, that's fucked up.
It's
like,
pretty traumatizing. I can't imagine sitting in a toilet bowl, not on the seat, with 3 babies in my belly,
piss.
just
Who knows
in your
what
own
else?
pit.
Yeah.
I would be so mad
She
too.
was furious.
Yeah, I'd be so mad. I feel Susan Pinsky. I feel your pain.
Oh my God.
I think you helped me a lot today.
Yeah.
Yes.
I worry about the sort of cogence of what I said because I feel like I haven't like discussed this topic in like a public. I've written about it, which is interesting. Like I wrote a few pieces. I wrote like one piece on Medium about dating a 40-year-old, and like I was doing a series called Just My Luck for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because like I think from like 25 to 27 ish, I like really I was like into dating. Like I was like Tindering like a motherfucker, like dating like 3 to 4 people a week. Didn't know that you didn't have to fuck everybody that you went on a date with. I learned that.
Didn't get that memo.
Yeah,
huh?
no. I learned that reading Mary Carr yesterday. I was like, oh, you don't have to have sex with everybody.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I was
When
like,
did that rule get
how
instated?
do you know then?
That's funny.
So I've dated a wide. There was as a 25-year-old, you're gonna be a hit among 40-year-olds no matter what.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm special. And I was like, no, you're just 25.
Mm.
And so I've dated older men, I've dated younger men, I've dated everybody imaginable. And with each dating experience, I learned something about myself.
Mhm.
And that like, I went on a date where someone like, I was talking and he was like, you can sit in silence. You don't have to talk so much.
Oh my God.
And then like a year later, he added me on, I of course slept with him. And then a year later we rematched on Tinder and he was like, hey, and I was like, I don't think you like me. Like we went on a date and he was like, I don't remember saying that, and it's like, everyone is sort of in their own bullshit.
Mhm.
And like, again, it kind of comes back to like, how can you facilitate a connection by having an interest in the person you're sitting with?
Yes, being interested.
And maybe that even will stop you from going on dates that you don't want to go on.
Yeah, totally.
And I've been on a lot of dates that I didn't want to go on, but I was more afraid of being alone than sitting with someone I didn't like.
That's interesting.
Because I have learned that I can talk to a wall.
Mm-hmm.
I know that
I don't know what that's like.
talk to a wall.
I can talk to the freaking doorknob about the keel.
Seriously though, and I would mistake that as chemistry, like chemistry with myself, as chemistry with someone else. It's like, are you actually adding to the conversation, or are you just a trampoline that I'm jumping on?
So would you say you were asking questions at that
No.
time? Okay, you were talking,
Oh, I was entertaining.
entertaining. Yeah.
And that I think performance as a mode for me is a defense strategy. And I know how to perform in a way where people won't worry about me. And I can keep myself entertained. And there's nothing more painful than going on a date and sitting in silence, and that, one, I could have started asking questions, and two, maybe there was no chemistry.
Yeah.
And that's not a death
Right.
sentence. You don't have to
No.
stay. You could be like, you know what? I'm not feeling this. I got to go. Thank you for coming out.
You don't have to stay. And there's also something, I'm super curious. Even if I had no connection with somebody, I guarantee you'd ask them 5 million questions because I'm like, my dad used to say, you have got to stop asking me questions. I just need 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, well, what's that? Well, why are you doing that? Well, why would you do that first instead of that?
Yeah.
Well, what would make you pick that tool instead of that one? He'd be like, you have to stop
Yeah.
asking me questions. So, but I guess that's a gift because then I'm never bored with anybody.
Yeah.
Ever. Not
Yeah.
ever. Unless the person's an absolute asshole.
Yeah, that happens.
And then that's a different thing.
That's information. It's all research, right?
It's all research. Yeah.
I think, if you're new to dating, like dating is awesome
Mhm.
because you learn something new about yourself every day you go on.
That's true.
And that's all you need to do. Like through dating, you should both be learning about the other person,
Mhm.
whether or not you're compatible, whether or not you find them interesting, and then also figuring out like who you are and what you like.
Mhm.
And yeah, I did a lot of dating, but I was very much in self. I was stoned every single date.
Mm.
And it's like, you're not actually this open vessel when you're stoned. You're actually more closed off than you think you are.
Right.
Because if you were actually present, you wouldn't even be on the date because you had to smoke to go on the date.
Well, that and you're veiled.
Yeah.
Because
there's
you're
a scrim.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's not real either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I start dating in a year, we'll have to do something on
I
like
was
sober
just
dating.
thinking that. I was like, when you start dating again, you'll have to test out this question asking.
Yeah.
And see how it affects you. Because I wonder, now I want to go back to that person that I sat and talked to while I was waiting on Bert and say, here's the key.
Yeah.
You should be asking lots of questions.
Yeah.
That's so stupid that it's that simple. But this has bothered me so much since you came on the podcast to talk about your book. When you told me this hookup culture existed, it has bothered me like deeply.
I could sense
concerned me.
I know. And I'm glad we're talking about it because I think I need to reflect on how to date before I actually start dating again. Because the way I was dating was self-destructive. I was not being discerning. I was doling away trust. I was not being compassionate. And I didn't even know what my boundaries were, right? Because I was stoned, so I couldn't even access them. And so it's going to be interesting. Who knows when I'll start dating, but like doing it sober.
Yeah.
And understanding that I don't have to fuck everybody I meet.
Well, I have this book to recommend. It's called It Doesn't Have to Be Awkward. It's by this great writer named Paulina Pinsky.
Never heard of her.
And a lot of that is the basis for how you date.
Yeah.
And how you
I know I got to reread it.
You should reread it for yourself as a curious person.
Yeah.
And not as a person who wrote the book.
I know, because over the summer I had to read it and I made a study guide in terms of like, how do I communicate the concepts in this book? But it would be interesting like a year from now or maybe even tonight to just peruse through and be like, what did we decide? What did I say? Because I don't know, it's so, that book has been such a foundation for this year. And when I was writing it, did not believe in it, whatever. But I was still having these conversations with my dad. And it was very much coming from this deep sense of like trying to crack the code for kids. It's like, well, how the hell do you connect with other people? And
it's because you needed it.
Yeah.
You needed that information.
I did.
That book was for you. That's what it was. It was for you. So now
That's so crazy.
It's
true.
That is true, right? It is
Yeah.
true. It is true. That was for you. Because all that you've described is not how that book says that you should function.
Yeah.
All that you're describing for your whole dating life experience.
Dysfunctional.
Is not what that is.
Thank God.
If you can write that book,
yeah,
you can live that life because you have the knowledge.
Yeah.
You have it. You just have to practice. That book was for you.
It was. It was. And it is. And it continues to be.
It's a great book.
Thank you.
I love this book.
Thank you.
I really do.
I really believe in it.
You should.
I think since our last conversation and sort of identifying that like, because I felt insecure about the aspect of it not being high literary or whatever, like it facilitated meeting you and it facilitated being here and it has facilitated so many interesting conversations that I've had. And such a deep shift in terms of how to relate to other people and myself. And I would not be sober and healthy today if it wasn't for that book.
That's amazing. What a gift. That's a gift.
Yeah. TCB.
TCB, baby. And
I gotta contact Elvis people and be like, listen, I rebranded TCB. I think that you should fly me to Graceland and I should meet everyone related to Elvis. And I think maybe I should be given a TCB necklace, like original one.
Right.
I'm gonna manifest that.
I think that's a good thing to
Oh my
manifest.
God.
Why not?
Elvis's Suspicious Minds was playing on my playlist today. And that's one of the songs that I dislike the most.
Oh, yeah.
Because as a kid, it was the only one that they played on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm just like, Elvis is my deity. Elvis is my God.
Yeah, he's pretty amazing.
Everybody's going to be like, she sounded smart until she said that.
No. Elvis was a pretty cool guy. Yeah. I mean, he was obviously had some drug problems.
And he loved little girls.
He did maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
Yep.
But, you know.
He changed the world.
He did.
Yeah, he changed the world. That's pretty cool. You know what? Once again, everybody's flawed, but it doesn't mean you don't have a purpose.
Yeah.
Or that you can't do good. You know, and that's hard to say, I think, these days.
Yeah.
You're either all bad or
it's
all
black
good,
and white thinking, right?
And we're not all bad or
left
all
or right, good versus bad, woke, unwoke, communist, Republican. Like, oh my God, so many people love to call me a communist. And I'm like, I wish I could be a good ethical communist, but my family comes from money and I'm not redistributing that well.
I'm not going to redistribute.
My dad would be mad. No, but it's just like, you know, I think by sort of labeling ourselves as one or the other, we do a disservice to the actual ideology and sort of disseminating those ideas and discussing those ideas. And like, I'm a radical feminist. If you're going to call me anything radical, call me a radical feminist. Like, get it right, you know? But people, it's the regurgitation, right? It's what they're hearing. And so they sling it as an insult and it just makes me laugh.
I only have one label.
Yeah.
Redneck.
Yeah.
That's it.
You like or don't like?
Oh, I totally grew up redneck.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wonderful aspects to being a redneck.
Yeah.
A lot of simplicity and a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't label myself as anything.
When you write a memoir,
I hate have to declare
redneck.
I know, right? I hate having to declare a party affiliation to vote.
Yeah.
Why can't I just vote?
Yeah.
I'm not affiliated with any of these fucking people.
Yeah.
I like this one and that one. And they're not the same party. So why do I have to say I'm one or the other? I mean, last election, I declared myself an independent, not really thinking it through, realizing that I couldn't vote in a primary because I was an independent and there was no candidate.
Oh, shit.
So I was like, I've just screwed myself because I don't want to be either one. I don't want to be either one. I want to be myself.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
I think people mistake labels as simplifying when in fact they are limiting.
They limit, totally. They totally limit. I was talking to somebody the other day. I have a friend who is Orthodox. She's a very good friend.
Yeah.
And obviously we have very different lives.
Yeah.
She's Orthodox Jewish.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, call me before 5:30 on Friday or I'll talk to you on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. But we were talking about, she's very conservative.
Yeah.
Very Republican.
Okay.
And she lives here. She lives right down the street.
Wow.
Which is not, super popular in LA.
Yeah.
I think it's popular in her community, but not in LA in general. And she's like, you know what's really difficult? And I actually agree with her. I can go home to rural Georgia where most everyone is conservative Republican and have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And nobody gets super crazy reactive and off their charts upset about something that I'm saying that's not in alignment with their beliefs.
Yeah.
But you come here and talk to a super liberal, you know, really democratic person, and they're like, how dare you have that belief? And I'm like, well, I don't know. But I don't agree with everything you're saying, but that doesn't make me evil.
Yeah.
And I go home and I feel like I'm not evil because I don't line up with them. But I come here and I don't line up. Even some of my friends where I go, I don't exactly agree with that.
Yeah.
Will turn and cross their arms and talk to me like this. And I'm like, girlfriend, we've been on like girls' trips and drinking wine and shooting the shit for years. You gonna turn your back on me and cross your arms because I don't agree with this one particular thing that you have? Okay. I'm not sure that's the way we ought to be.
I think when we all come from a place of not knowing anything.
Yeah. I don't know anything.
Believing that we could potentially be wrong about everything.
Uh-huh.
It's a much more humbling place.
It is. And to allow people to be different than you.
Yeah.
You know, I go home and I go, everybody in this room goes to Southern Baptist Church every Sunday. And I admire them for their devotion. I don't agree with the Southern Baptist religion. That doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to discount them because they believe something different than I believe.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, good for you that's what you feel so strongly, that you can be that devoted to something that you put in practice in your day-to-day life. One would hope they're not a hypocrite.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know. I don't have a problem with that.
I think
I don't know.
When we feel insecure about our beliefs and we discover that someone else is not in accordance to that feels threatening.
Interesting.
That being said, like, there are beliefs that are inherently destructive. Like,
of course.
homophobia, sexism, racism, all those things.
Well, yes.
It's like, that's some fucked up shit. But you're not going to convince a racist not to be racist by turning your arms and getting all snooty, right? Like,
totally.
I think when you come from a place in the same way of dating of like sort of psychic wonderment, right? Like, oh, really? You feel that way? Like, why do you feel that way? Right? And like sort of posing questions that sort of lead them to the place in which they are at a crossroads in which you say, well, actually blank, right? Like sort of the less reactive you become, the more receptive people become.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And it's I'm coming as like the leftist in my family. Yeah. Like I came home from college just being like, you know, and it didn't work. Alienated everybody. And like ideologically, I very much differ from my family.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I understand that my beliefs being my beliefs is all they need to be, right?
Yeah,
like I'm not here to proselytize anything. I'm here to share my perspective.
Sure.
I'm here to listen to your perspective, and maybe something that I say will actually open something up in you so that your perspective shifts.
Or the reverse.
Right? And so I don't know. I think anytime when you pit someone as evil, except Putin's evil.
Well, that's different though. There's there's certain things that are different where there's a line that I think everyone could agree is no bueno.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess not. I mean, I am not a big Trump fan.
No, me neither.
At all.
Yeah.
But I also recognize that our country didn't fall completely apart like was predicted when he was in office. So to me, it's a testament to the way the whole system works somewhat.
Well, I think
even though the system is broken.
Yeah. I think it was reflective of the media that people consume more than anything.
Yeah.
And what keeps their eyes on the screen. And for a lot of people, it was like, I'm tired of seeing elitist bullshitters lie to me. And to have someone be so contrary to that was exciting. And you know, not everybody relates to sort of the rarefied, polished politician. That being said, like, Trump is the reason I smoked weed every day. Trump is responsible for my addiction.
Oh, now we got to the bottom. We can stop digging now. It was Donald Trump.
There it is. So if you have any issue with me, it's that Donald Trump is the reason that I smoked weed every day, and I'll be sending my tab to him. No, but it's just like exploding at someone isn't going to change their perspective.
No, it's not. No, but excellent points in an argument might. Or not even an argument. Excellent points and being able to articulate why you feel a certain way might.
For some people, it's just that they like money.
That's true. For some people, it is that they like money. And for some people, it is that they like to win. And it's just about winning. And for some people, it's about religion. And religion should not be in politics.
Yeah.
And that's separation of church and state is part of our building blocks of this country. And that bothers me sometimes.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that bothers me.
Yeah.
Is when religion, and, you know, in God we trust is all over, you know, but I don't know.
I think the foundation of all this, and I feel like we went from dating to Trump.
I know,
but
right? Same.
The foundation,
it's the
same difference.
I would totally date Trump. Could you imagine?
Oh my God, I could just imagine like his spray tan, just
the
like
hair
leaving marks on my pillowcases, and just like sort of like I imagine he leaves wrappers everywhere. Like I don't know why I feel that way. Then
he just leaves random wrappers everywhere. Like wrappers from what? From gum?
Like I can imagine like Cliff Bars or like.
You think he eats a Cliff Bar?
Oh, I imagine.
No, I think maybe like a McDonald's cheeseburger wrapper.
Oh my God.
That's probably. He doesn't eat Cliff Bars.
I don't know. Just like some sort of like processed like. Just wrappers everywhere.
He would eat a Nature Valley granola bar.
There you go.
Not a Cliff Bar. That's way too like tree hugger Vermont.
True. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I think at the bottom of this is like constantly being, and I think this is why I love Judaism, is that there's sort of an inherent sense of questioning everything. Right? It's getting to the bottom of something through asking questions, whether that is getting to know someone, whether that is trying to change someone else's mind. Like in order to actually change someone else's mind, you have to hear their perspective.
You absolutely, yes.
And just because you don't agree doesn't mean they're wrong.
Absolutely. It just means you don't agree. That's it.
Like multiple things can be true.
It's exactly right. I agree with that. There is no right or wrong all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is your side and my side and they don't line up.
And sometimes you have to set a boundary, right? Where it's like, don't use that language with me, or I feel uncomfortable by you saying that, and please don't say that around me anymore, or whatever it is.
Sure.
Like you can still give them space and time to air their grievances while also expressing when things cross your boundary.
Yeah, totally.
Without exploding. Because what exploding means is that you didn't place a boundary early enough and they traversed the boundary without them knowing.
Right. That's a good point. When you explode, you haven't. Oh, that's very interesting. You haven't placed the boundary early enough, so they've already gone way past it.
Yep.
Now it's incendiary.
Yeah.
Wowzers. Well, we should wrap it up. This was a good conversation about dating. How do you feel about this conversation?
It's interesting. I feel like it's interesting to have a conversation that is like
two different generations.
Meeting minds. Having ideas.
Well, old school, new school. Is that what it is?
Well, I guess I'm sort of it's this interesting sort of transition of like being able to use my instrument in a way that isn't about, it doesn't have to be awkward, or it's kind of like this, it marks a moment in which I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of free falling in its own way, and like in its own beautiful way, that like I can show up and have this conversation with you, and we can have deeper insight based on what we hear from each other, and that like I don't know, I just so enjoy talking to you.
Same. I know we have good conversations.
We do.
It's because we
really
both can talk to a doorknob about a keyhole. It's because I enjoy talking. I enjoy asking questions. I enjoy learning.
Yeah, me too.
And you have a lot to teach.
Thank you.
So,
and you do too. I feel like I've learned so much from you. Genuinely and truly. Like every time we have a conversation, I listen to the podcast, and because when I'm in this space, I'm very much in an improvisational space,
Sure.
right? So like I'm cognizant of what I'm saying, but like when I walk away, I'm not gonna be like, I said X, Y, and Z, like for lack of a better way of saying, it's kind of like a blackout where it's just like I'm so present that it's not like I'm not keeping tabs of myself.
Yeah, totally. Nor should you.
Yeah, and so it's beautiful to be able to have recordings of these conversations, because even though I had the conversation and it of course shifted something in me, being able to listen to it again and really reflect on it has facilitated a lot of growth and insight.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so I just feel so honored and lucky to have this opportunity to speak to you. I really do. And like, again, like it just wouldn't have happened if I hadn't written the book. And it's just like,
it wouldn't have happened. And that's a shame, because I should have met you years ago.
I know, right?
Yeah, I've known your dad for a long time.
I've been in New York. I was running.
That's true.
I was running. But I'm done running, and it's beautiful. Like I'm so happy to be in LA. I'm so happy to be 90 days sober.
Yeah. The hustle is exhausting. And you get so into and used to the hustle They don't realize how exhausting it was. My whole college years were all a hustle.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I stopped hustling, I was profoundly tired.
That's where I am right
Profoundly.
now.
Yes.
I
And
think the
you will
EMDR
be.
yesterday and this morning, but then I went to a meeting and I'm here. And so like, I love seeing you and talking to you. And so I imagine I'm going to go home and be like,
But that's so where you should be,
mm-hmm.
because you got to recover from years of a hustle. If you're going to be present, because when you're present, you have unbounding energy.
Yeah.
You don't get tired like you did when you were in the hustle.
When I was pretending, right?
Exactly.
Like I was performing.
Exactly. And you got to keep up with all that shit. There's so much to monitor and keep up with. And what did I say to that person? And how was I acting over here? What did I wear that last time?
What do they think of me?
Yeah, constantly. Exactly. And then there's so much freedom when you just put the hustle down. Man,
I feel it. I really feel it.
You put it down.
I did.
So you're gonna be tired for a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
No, I'm honored to have both the privilege of being tired and catering to my healing and having these conversations. And, you know, they say in like recovery rooms that you're like, you know, not to be public about this stuff and to keep it to yourself. But also like I've never, I mean, eating disorder recovery, I was premature about sharing things. But because I did that, I was able to facilitate community around me, and I was able to just share what I was learning on a massive scale. And, you know, my entire life I've been running from being Dr. Drew's daughter, you know, and now it's like, I can't run from that fact. I can use that privilege to share what I'm learning with people.
Yeah.
Because that feels more enriching than running.
It does. And gratitude is always better than anything else.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm really grateful. And this is going to sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, you know, I would have liked to have had a mom that was loving and caring and that I connected with, that was safe. I didn't get that. So I have two choices. I can be resentful or I can be grateful. And I have chosen for years now to be grateful, because what I learned from having this relationship that was not a choice of mine, that was something that was just meant to be. I was born to her. I didn't, you know, go through my Rolodex and go, that one.
Yeah.
So I can choose to be really grateful for that, because of the myriad of things that I learned from being raised by a woman who had all these mental issues. But on the flip side was, you know, she was raised in a very small town and decided she had a big dream to be a model and went after it.
Yeah.
And really was very successful at that. That's very positive.
Yeah.
She was beautiful and revered by everyone who saw her. That's wonderful. You know, there was a lot of she was charming and never met a stranger, and, you know, always very warm outwardly to people.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for all of that. If I ever got physically injured, there was no more mother bear than that one.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I'm super grateful for that. And I never would have learned to read people or learn to listen so carefully, learn to watch subtleties in people's behavior and actions, and to be able to evaluate my own feelings and make choices from that evaluation if I hadn't had that mother. So I can choose to be like, well, all of this sucked. And some of it really did. But I don't invalidate that by any stretch of the means. But I know that it is part of the soup, and the soup is good. So if my soup is good, then it's got to be okay. You know,
resentment is poison.
It's poison.
And you can't drink poison and expect it to hurt your enemy.
No, of course not.
And what I'm hearing in you is sort of being able to acknowledge the pain and suffering.
Yeah.
But also understanding that you are who you are today because of that journey.
Same with you with your dad.
Big time. And my mom.
And your mom. You
the
are exactly
whole
you are.
Thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful gift in order to have perspective.
Uh-huh.
And when you're running, you can't have perspective
Yeah.
because you're in motion, and perspective requires stillness.
It does.
And once you're able to get to a place of stillness, yes, it is scary. Yes, it is vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to be able to finally be the person that you thought you were once you process what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're carrying that weight with you, it is eclipsing your every interaction and moment of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't even realize the way in which like smoking weed every day and drinking a ton was like keeping me from being present.
Yeah.
And I'm at the very beginning. Like I have 90
Yeah,
days. Yeah,
totally,
that's
yeah.
amazing. But also like 24 hours at a time. Like I hope to always sort of have a newcomer's mindset, and that
Mhm.
like even if I get to 40 years, like I want to treat each new day as if I am brand new.
Well, curiosity, baby, that's what does it.
Yeah.
Is you go, what's today?
Yeah.
What's today going to be? Who am I really now that I'm not running? Curious. I'm curious to see who's showing up today.
Yeah.
And what I can love in that person today. And because I know there were lots of parts of me that I'd been blaming for a long time for my relationship with my mom. And when I started forgiving her, I started seeing myself differently.
Interesting.
I started really seeing myself in a less punitive, more loving way. Because when I saw my mom as flawed and human and forgave her, then I saw my reaction to her as flawed and human and forgiven. So it was very healing to start really letting her go, because then it allowed me to show up, you know?
Oh God, that's I think where I am right now.
That's great.
Like,
so you can be curious and go, what did I miss?
Yeah.
And you know, another thing that did it for me was having Isla, because Isla was so very like me when I was little. And my mom didn't like me when I was little. So I was determined to watch Isla and let her just be who she is, and let that affect how I saw myself. Because I went, that's who I was had I not been controlled or oppressed or pushed or squashed. That's who I really am. So let's let that kind of come to the surface. It's okay. Nobody's here to say, don't do that. Stop being so loud. Why don't you want to wear shoes? You got to put a shirt on. Oh, that was a broken record. You've got to put a shirt on. You know, till I was like 5 years old, I didn't wear a shirt. And I wonder why Isla has sensory processing problems. I wore pants.
Wow.
And that's it. Did not brush my hair. Did not take a bath. Nope. I brushed my teeth. But other than that, you can kiss my honey. I'm not putting on shoes. No, I'm not putting on a shirt. My dad had to sit down with me. My mom was gone when I started kindergarten. And he was like, okay, now you know you're going to have to start wearing a shirt and shoes. And I was like, why? Because you're going to kindergarten. And I was like, but boys don't have to wear shirts.
Oh,
and he goes,
God.
But you're a girl. You have to wear a shirt to kindergarten.
Oh my
Like,
God.
this is the worst news I've ever gotten in my life. I started wearing a shirt. So people think it's a coincidence I've married my husband who never wears a shirt, but I resonate.
You're living
I get it.
vicariously.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Shirts are very binding. And,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. I'm just kidding. But
No, I have a deep sense that I'm going to have a daughter named Ruby. I don't know why.
oh, cool.
We'll see if that happens. Watch it be like 4 boys or whatever the fuck. Or none at all. Who knows?
So change the B to a D and you got it.
Exactly. And what you're saying is just so beautiful. And I hope to be in a space of healing so that I'm able to do that for my
You already
child.
are in a space of healing.
Yeah.
You already are. And so if you just wake up every day curious, and you know, I became curious about my mom actually. Not like about her feelings, you know, not about her actions. Because when you're a child, I think you focus on the actions and the behaviors, which is what gives you cues to danger. You know, that expression means I'm about to get hit.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever that is. But when I started going, But what was under that? Like, what was she feeling? She was feeling out of control. She was feeling like she has a disrespectful child. She was feeling that she was losing me. She was feeling she was failing. Then I could have compassion and forgive her and say, oh, I understand that.
Damn.
Okay, I get that. This is a woman who was abused as a child, who does not have an accurate view of the world in any way, shape, or form. So as a child, there's no way I could know that. As an adult who's reflective, I can put myself in her shoes and say, that would feel horrible. I understand now why she acted that way. I don't condone it. I don't say it's okay, but I understand it and I can forgive her. That was a big part of my healing with my mom, is to say, okay, I see you as a person who had feelings. The feelings just may not have been very healthy. And before, it was just about the nastiness. But there's a motivation for that nastiness. What was it? And most of it was really her way of, not most of it, but sometimes it was how she thought she was caring for me. And it's just not, it just wasn't.
Didn't translate.
It didn't translate, right. So when I could get to that, I could go, okay, she was really doing her best. She was like driving a 3-wheeled car. You know what I mean? Like, you can get it to go down the street, but it's going to make a lot of noise, and then sparks are going to fly off that 4th wheel that's got no tire on it.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's going to break completely down. But you can get a little piece in that car with just 3 tires.
Yeah.
You really can. So that's all she was doing. She was just driving a car with 3 tires, and sparks were flying everywhere. And I was just focusing on the one wheel that had no tire instead of going, wait a minute, we have these 3 tires going on here. Okay.
Wow.
These 3 things were actually good. So let's forgive the one bad tire.
This is the part that I'm going to probably watch later and just like sit and stare at the ceiling and be like, oh, shit.
I know for sure your parents love you very much, care about you deeply, and want you to be happy and successful as a person. Not, I don't mean money or whatever, just successful as a person. I know that they want that for you.
I do too.
They absolutely love you, adore you. You know how many times your parents, both of them, have texted me since we've started talking?
Really?
Yes, they have. And it's very sweet. You know, they are, thank you so much. We love that you talk to Paulina. And I love talking to you. I'm not doing it for your parents.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for myself.
Yeah.
Selfishly. But the side effect of that is that they do text me and say, thank you so much, which is really lovely to hear, but I don't need it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to hear from them where you're concerned at all. That's just like a little cherry on top.
Yeah.
But I enjoy talking to you so much. I've learned so much from you.
Likewise.
And continue to learn. I look forward to every conversation we have.
Me too.
I'm glad. That makes me happy.
I just, you know, it's interesting. I don't know if I've said this on this podcast, but like I very much do you know Lawrence Fishburne?
Of course.
So he was in Pee-wee's Playhouse. He was Cowboy Curtis.
I do remember Cowboy Curtis.
I sort of viewed it doesn't have to be awkward as like me being in Dr. Drew's Playhouse being Cowboy Paulina. And now I get to sort of move back into sort of like, what is my matrix?
Yeah.
You know? And I think having these conversations, and again, like these conversations have facilitated so much for me in terms of just like people reaching out to me, whether that's for Artist Way, whether that's for writing coaching, whether that's just following me, you know, I am starting to understand my own strength and my own perspective because of these conversations. And so I just want to thank you for that, because
of course.
I mean, I had a self-concept about Cowboy Curtis, you know, before the book started, but now I'm starting to feel the matrix come, you know?
That's amazing.
And so I'm just thankful. I'm just so thankful.
That's amazing. What you should be thankful for is that damn book.
Yeah, I am. I'm starting to be.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
That book was for you, was a big deal for you.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Thank you, Paulina.
I love you so much.
I
really
love you too. Well, come back soon. We'll have to figure out what we want to talk about
any
next.
day, anytime. I
know, right?
Topic.
What can we talk about next? What should we talk about next? Do you have anything you want to talk about?
Well, I was thinking like maybe just sort of like the idea of fame and sort of like the experience of fame.
Okay.
Because you were saying that you guys kind of were sort of catapulted into the sphere of fame like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why people find you so delightful is that you haven't been tainted by the stratosphere of fame.
Mm-hmm.
You're very much like a real, authentic human being with something to share rather than something to sell.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested in that.
Yeah. And I think that people can sense that. And I think we are starting to be in this pivotal moment in which I think people are starting to understand that a lot of the celebrity stratosphere is sensation without feeling, is pornographic.
Right.
And so
that's interesting.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of interested in sort of the idea of celebrity and the idea of it as an aspiration, and how people mistake it as a singular goal rather than a side effect of pursuing your craft.
Oh, we could have a big conversation about that.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay.
We'll do that our next time.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.